It's Friday, February 28th, 2025. Start off as we normally do by letting you know that if you'd like to support our show, it's easy. Just go to supportourshow.com. I don't know why I did that, but I always feel like I can't just say it normally. So
I was just watching One Crazy Summer, like literally just minutes before I came here, and
sure,
I was so amazed by what Bobcat Goldthwait does with his voice through all that.
Oh,
where he's
man,
basically he's not that. So much of his movies early on, he was just this kind of growling maniac.
Oh yeah,
and then later on
so
in life,
much movement. Yeah,
when he just became like a normal person, like it was so weird to me. Like when you see him in Scrooge, like it's such a different version of him. Against this kind of weird growling creature that he was. Very strange.
Sure.
So that you somewhat invoked that there.
I tried. I mean, nobody can do what he can do. He's one of those people. But,
Yeah.
I did want to talk about something odd. It's a small thing.
Oh no,
because
not something odd.
Odd because we've discussed many times, my paranoia brain structure, where I'm constantly, Jarvis style identifying threats everywhere, whether they have a rational basis or not.
Yeah.
And one that I've always had a deep fear of is an electrical fire. Just because there's no way to know if it'll happen. It could just happen. So it's one of those things where you could just be asleep and there's a short in the wall and suddenly you're all dead in an hour. Like one of those type of things. And so I've had this paranoia about that for a long time.
There are fire alarms. There are smoke detectors. I mean,
Yeah, but yes, but
it's not just 1, 2 dead. Like there is more steps.
I'm just going to say that everybody do yourself a favor and don't look up how often those don't help. So that's all I'm going to say is it's nice to augment those things. Believe me, I have 5 smoke detectors in the house. A hallway, one in each bedroom, and then one in the main. I'm covered, but that does not. I don't think people should count on that as the way to make sure they don't burn to death. Is all I'm saying. So, one of the things, like I said, my fear is electrical because you don't necessarily know, and it can get pretty far before it ever becomes out of the walls, and the detectors can pick it up.
Did someone burn to death recently?
No. I've just had this fear for a long time. No, nobody burned to death that
it just
I know
came
of.
up. Okay.
But there's a woman named Stacy Higginbotham who for a number of years did Internet of Things evaluations and reviews with a high focus on user privacy and data security. Like she's one of these people who's been on top of the fact that you have to be so careful what this stuff is taking from you and whether the terms of service cover you and all this type of thing. So I've been a fan of hers for a while.
Yeah.
And she moved into Consumer Reports and does now that for them, which is great. But she happened to mention a product, and I looked into it, and it's this little plug-in thing called Ting, T-I-N-G, like thing minus the H. And it's this little device. It's about the size of like an air freshener that you would plug in, one of those kind of things. Looks like a little kind of flat thing. And you plug it in, and it was developed by firefighters specifically to monitor the electrical system of your house for anything out of the ordinary. It's like a EKG. It's like, how your watch monitors your heart rate now?
Yeah.
It's like that. No subscription required. You don't have to pay anything monthly. It's $100. You plug it in and you get a weekly report, and it will let you know if there's anything odd going on, and it will tell you, okay, here's what it is. Now you need to get it fixed. Like if it's urgent, to try to prevent that. It's no guarantee either, obviously.
Nothing is 100%.
No, but it does monitor, and it's great. I look at this thing from time to time, and I make sure there's no voltage weirdness or anything. It's just, it's a peace of mind percentage, like additive or whatever you want to call it, where it's just one of those things where I look at that from time to time. I make sure nothing weird is happening. It's got like a real-time voltage thing where it'll show you what's going through. All you need to do is have a 3-prong outlet for it. That's it. You just plug it in, and you're done. So I just wanted to put it out there for anybody else who might be like me and wants to take one increment off the gigantic Minesweeper checkboard of paranoia, that this thing is out there, and I've been very happy with it. The fact that it doesn't have a subscription, it doesn't need to know anything about you.
Oh, the fact that there is no membership. I mean, that's amazing.
Nope. And then you don't have to sign up for it, like nothing. You just plug it in, and basically you get these, it sends you if you want them, these little things saying, here's things, to be aware of for fire safety. But this was heavily made by firefighters. Like because that's the focus, is to try to stop people from dying from fires. That's the goal. So I'm like, that's great, man. It wasn't a millionaire tech bro who wanted to suddenly, unite the world money. Well, that too. So I just wanted to...
Let's just cut to the chase on this, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's bare bones. It's simple. It has one job, and that's all it's doing.
No, it sounds great. What's it called again?
Ting, T-I-N-G, without thing. Yeah, electrical fire safety. I'll put a link to it, of course. And yeah, it's a little thing. Like I said, the only thing fantastic. You have to... Yeah. And it just needs, it will, if you want to get the alerts, it has to have your network to send you, to monitor that, to notify you. That's it. Outside that, doesn't need anything. It just
I had a totally different question for you than that.
Oh, sure.
I was going to ask you, when giving someone the middle finger, do you like thumb in or thumb out?
Oh, no, in.
I see. I've become really fond of thumb out.
No, I think thumb out looks tacky.
You know what? For me, when I have the thumb out, it almost makes me think it's like a crucifix of "go fuck yourself." I realized that recently because I gave someone the finger, and I was like, "Oh!" And the thumb came out like automatically. It's kind of like when your pinky goes up when you're drinking like tea.
Yeah.
But I was wondering that, and I thought, I wonder if Joe's got a preference, thumb in or thumb out.
I'm always thumb out because it's more strong when it's like, okay, there is no mistaking what's happening here. It's one finger. Like you're not gonna mistake that somebody's counting weird on their hand or something.
Whereas with me, my thumb is almost like I'm giving you a thumbs up to go fuck yourself. Like.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that it really matters, but no,
it doesn't compare to not having an electrical fire. It just popped into my head.
No, it's kind of a RoboCop thing. I just think of RoboCop with taking the single blade out. That's kind of always the way I've kind of envisioned it. It's like chunk,
Right before he stabs your computer.
Yeah. I wish somebody made a thumb drive that was that. But
that was just a giant RoboCop glove.
No, it was just the hand, just the arm with that you pressed a button and the little thing shot out with the USB-C thing.
Oh, okay.
I mean, obviously it wouldn't be a blade, but you could paint it so it looked that way. So you put a black couple of triangles on the sides and it'll look like it's shooting out. But I'm sure it's very impractical. But it'd be awesome.
Oh. You know what? A lot of the fun things in life are.
Well, and there are certainly more impractical thumb drives.
Yeah.
I had a USB hub that was a toaster, and each of the drives was a piece of toast.
I had a Matchbox car.
Oh, that's nice. That's neat. I like that. There was a company called MemoBot that for a while was making really neat kind of, I don't know what you would call them. I think they still exist, but oh no, you know what? They're gone.
They're gone.
Yeah.
Is it?
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is you have these little interesting sort of devices and they last for so long. But I mean, the technology is shifting so fast that, and this is the problem with this is that, you ornamentalize these peripherals, but then the peripherals become obsolete so fast that the art gets thrown out with it. You know what I mean? So it's like there's almost no point. It's why a lot of the technology is so boring, because it's like by the time you get the opportunity to play with it, it's already so old they've moved on to the next thing. That's why you don't get any like bejeweled laptops. You know?
Yeah, not many. No.
So,
not much of it.
Well, I had a weird week.
What do you call it? I have a little thing that I got off Etsy for my watch. It's a thing hand, and it's got a place to put the watch.
Oh, I saw that. That is really cool. I
like that. And but now all they're doing is the new one with all the stitching and everything, which I don't like. I just wanted it to look like a hand.
Either,
No, and that's all there is. So basically, I was going to get a black one because now I realized that there's one part where I've got my Two-Face statue. It's all black and white, and that was the only thing that wasn't black and white. So I'm like, well, I have to make it match. So I have to make it black and white. So I just painted it. I ended up just painting the one I had, but my original idea was to get a black one so I could have, monochrome black and white on everything. But
you could always
you painted that? I'm like, of course I did. It was the only non-black and white thing on there. It had to change. It's a compulsion. Like, no, it's him. It's got to be like him. I actually have a white leather glove that I'm probably going to put on it just so that there's the alternating white and black of it. I've gone way overboard. It's okay.
But you know what? The environment doesn't change enough. It's the ornamentalization of the environment.
So it's like my little black and white area. It's great. Yeah.
It's a shrine is what it is.
It really is. And Two-Face is in the center. Is that giant Two-Face statue, which is just, oh God, that thing is beautiful.
It's a shrine. Yeah.
It really is. Anyway, sorry. You were saying?
No, I was just saying I had a weird week. My wife and my son went away for the week, and my daughter and I spent the week watching PG-13 horror-esque movies. So I have some, not reviews, because these are older movies, but I have some notes on a bunch of little movie things before we get to our larger movie review. Because Joe and I, once again, we're kind of maintaining a joint movie review thing here, which is funny.
We've had a good record so far. The three that we've watched have all delivered in different ways.
Oh, totally different ways,
well.
But ways, definitely ways.
Yeah.
So this is a very movie-heavy show, I guess. But I have a bunch of movies to discuss. Some very briefly. So my first movie that I watched with my daughter was Aliens vs. Predator, which I was trying really hard not to, because it's a terrible way to enter the franchise. And you know what? Having watched it again, you know what I can tell you without any doubt? Oh, God, it's not a good movie. It's not a good movie at all. Yeah. Like, especially when I realized that that's the guy who did Resident Evil, and realized that there's so much about Aliens vs. Predator which mimics Resident Evil. Down to the same black security guy, played by the same actor, getting killed by a net that basically cuts his face. Right? In Resident Evil, they do it with a laser net, and then in this one, they have like the weird Predator razor net thing, right? But it's once I realized that, I was like, wow, not only is this movie bad, it's kind of lazy. Not to mention the fact the Predator design is terrible. They made them look like these giant, doofy linebackers. Like, they've got these giant shoulders and these kind of big, silly feet. And it's annoying because in the one part in that movie where the Predator is obviously CG, he moves like a fucking acrobat, which is like one of the best parts of the movie. But it's CG. Like, the rest of the time, it's they just look so bad. And
the irony of the badness of that design is the one thing that I felt like they got right that they had gotten wrong in. What was the Predators? Is that
Predators. Those Predators with yes.
Yeah. They kept lengthening the arm blades to ridiculous.
Oh, but they're huge in this one.
Well, but not all of them. Some of them are normal.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'll be honest. I'd rather have them be fat than long. They look worse longer than fat.
They have they're like huge hook swords at that point, you know.
Yeah, I mean they're over ornamentalized. That's the problem.
But just the design is so bulky. Like, it looks like they're wearing a suit. And the thing is, when you see the Predator in Predator 1 and you see the Predator in Predator 2, it is a design that, like, yes, it's a suit, but you could also look at it and say, no, that's a creature, right? he doesn't feel overly. It does feel like you're looking at a quasi naked creature with like armor on it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas when you see this movie, they just look so.
I hate the helmets too.
The helmets look so fat. The helmets are huge. The shoulders are massive. Like it just feels so unnecessarily bulky.
I remember one. I'm looking through the pictures, and this is what I remember. The one that's got the mark on the helmet. That one looks okay. That one is the least overdone. There's one with all these like teeth in it, and it's so stupid looking.
It's like you had Predators designed by people who didn't really feel like designing Predators, who had no kind of enjoyment. Because when you see the design of this movie stands alone, because when you see the design in Prey, that thing looks fucking scary.
Yeah.
Right? And when you see the ones that they used in Predators, those look scary. They're nowhere near as bulky as the fucking Aliens vs. Predator design. So my question is, why? I mean, even you know what? I haven't seen the most recent one. What was the one that they did? The last one, Predator.
The Predator? No, I won't watch that.
Yeah, but do they look better in that? I know there's some weird hybrid one in that or something like that.
I don't know, and I don't care.
Okay. Well,
I don't care.
Either way, yeah. So that Aliens vs. Predator is still bad.
Hold on, I'll tell you. Let's see. Here is The Predator. Let's take a look.
Let's
see some pictures. Hold on, let me take a look. Well, I'll say this. It's skinnier, so that's better, but it's got another over-designed helmet. Oh, God. No, they did like the Star Trek reboot design on all the equipment. It's all overly kind of Apple designed and looking. I mean, the Predator himself doesn't look like a linebacker. He looks like the body form is fine.
So the body form is good.
Everything around it sucks. Yeah, go to IMDb and look at the pictures of it. It's awful. Oh, God.
Yeah, so the design of the Predator looks bad. And then the movie itself, for a movie that's it's not a short movie, it goes by really fast because you never really have attachment to anything. The people show up and they all die. I mean, it's that quick. Like, you don't really give a shit about anybody because everybody dies so fucking fast. And then by the time the Predator and the main human our outdoor specialist kind of like, hook up as a team, the movie's pretty much over. And then you have the final battle with the T-Rex. I mean, the fucking alien queen. And it's like, it's not a good movie.
That, by the way, is the one thing.
Yeah.
The one thing that I think bothers me the most about that movie.
Yeah.
Is the idea of the Predator Queen as this kind of T-Rex thing could work. Because I don't mind...
She was scary as fucking aliens.
Right, but she barely moved. I mean, because they were doing it all practically. Now.
Yeah.
And normally I'm all for practical, but the idea of the alien queen with her size and ferocity moving quickly as a T-Rex type of threat has a lot of potential. I'm not against that. Right? But they did it so poorly. Just like everything else in that movie. It's
the whole movie.
So poorly
the whole
done.
movie has this... When you hear the idea, you go, wow, that sounds like it's going to be really cool. But then the actual execution...
Especially if you read the comics. You were like, this is it.
I know. Yeah, but when you get the actual execution of it is so awful.
Yeah.
Like, it's just... So anyway, Aliens vs. Predator still isn't good.
That's right. The Predator has the Predadog, too. I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah. Which, that was
Predator
kinda,
dog. Sure.
So I followed that up with Tremors the next night, right?
Oh, God.
Because I wanted to change. I'm trying to give my daughter kind of a...
Talk,
we're watching...
talk about a quality jump.
I know. So we're watching we're watching PG-13 horror movies, right? So this is kind of a weird area because there's not a lot of stuff there. I love it, and you were like, just watch Hellraiser. I'm like, no, we can't fucking watch Hellraiser.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to throw her into the deep end quite yet. So we watched Tremors. And the reason I wanted to watch Tremors is because after watching Alien vs. Predator, which is such a dark movie, right? Like, as in, like, the lighting itself is so dark. Yeah. I love the idea of a movie that's like a horror monster movie all out in the daytime.
Yeah.
We're like...
Yeah.
What did you send me?
I sent you that Predator design so you can tell me what you think.
Oh, I think it looks like shit. That's what I think it looks like.
You know what? There's that. Believe it or not, the same movie has something worse, which I didn't even know about.
Is that The Predator?
That is The Predator. This is The Predator. Yeah,
okay.
That's the image you're looking at. That's him, and this is the thing that kills him. It's a piece of technology. I guess. It's a suit.
Like the hybrid one or something like that?
It was stolen by a fugitive predator and brought to Earth. When it was hunted down by the upgrade predator. Oh my God, these names. See, this is why I won't watch this shit.
Interesting. All right.
There's 3 Predator movies, Sam. That's it. There's 3.
Okay.
It's done. Thanks.
You know what's funny is if your movie is not better than Predator 2, don't even put it out.
If it's not better and or fun.
Yeah, or
it better be one or the other, damn it.
Yeah. So, anyway, yeah, and that's why I did Tremors, because Tremors is out in the day. It's got really great characters. It's funny.
Fun. It's fun.
And it's fun. And you see the monster. Like, they don't hide it. It's right there. They used a lot of practical effects on that. A lot of camera trickery. It's very Sam Raimi at times. Oh, yeah. People still die in interesting ways. But
when they find that car, that's horrifying. That's a great
No.
scene.
You know what? I think what it is that the Aliens vs. Predator starts out so quickly. There's no breathing room. Like the second you get there, it's like and the thing is, Tremors is great because Tremors has a long wind up. Where like I like horror movies where there's like a big mystery, where it's like when they find the guy up in the electrical tower, and they're like, he's been there for 3-4 days. He died of thirst, and you're like,
right?
What the fuck would be up there for
Why
so
is he
long?
Up there?
What would drive somebody up there? So I love the mystery, right? Because you don't know what they're capable of. You know what's going on. So that's still a very good flick. A very young Kevin Bacon.
And also
Fred Ward
opening,
is awesome in that.
A lot of that opening is letting you get to know everybody, establishing the town, the relationships. It's so well layered.
Yeah, it's a shame they made sequels. Because all the sequels were bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
The only reason to watch the sequels is, except for one, is what's his face is still clearly having a good time, but nobody else.
Oh yeah, the gun
Michael
nut.
Gross.
Yeah. Because there is one where they bring him to an island or something like that, and he's
that one's.
But his character isn't even the most. He's a side character. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
The big show is Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon. Yeah. And the fact that they're just trying to get out of this fucking shithole of a town, and then everything goes wrong, right? So that is, I don't have a lot to say because it's still a great movie. If you haven't seen Tremors, you totally should. Even if you're not a horror movie person, it's actually, it's a great sort of mystery thriller comedy, right? Because you can play down the monster aspect of it, right? There's a lot of tension, right? But still, Tremors is great. Tremors was my pick, right? After that, there was some debate whether we were going to watch Jaws or The Meg. And I, of course, wanted Jaws. But knowing my child and knowing kind of the generation.
Damn, I should have had you have chosen poorly sound effect. Oh well.
She really wanted The Meg. And I was like, it's fine. Honestly, she likes Jason Statham. She's seen Hobbs and Shaw. And she really likes Jason Statham. So I was like, that's fine. We can watch The Meg. Have you seen The Meg?
No, if you remember, I told you I watched about 20 minutes and I gave up.
Oh, okay. Yes, I
couldn't make it.
Yeah. So, and here's the thing. Having kids is good because sometimes they make you do things that you normally do. It's like I would never have watched this movie, right? But because my daughter wanted to watch it, I watched it. And now we have something to talk about. So see, it works out. The Meg is not
pain with me and gain strength from the share.
All right, review The Meg.
It's not a great movie, but it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And honestly, it's because, and I'm gonna have to preface this because I saw The Meg 2 the next night, right? And having watched those two back to back, Meg 2 makes Meg 1 look amazing, right? But we'll get to Meg 2 in a minute because there's a lot there. There's a lot there to get into. So Meg 1, you know what? The idea, the book, my wife read the book and really liked the book and said it was actually, quite a good, like, kind of Jaws-like book. And And then when she heard they were making a movie, she was like, "Oh, that sounds good." And then when she saw the trailer, she was like, "Yeah, fuck that." And that's the sense I got with this, is that this is another example of getting a book, going, right, we bought the rights to this book, now let's ignore it and make whatever we want. So Statham is a dive rescue expert who was rescuing people from a submarine, and something started in like deep water, and something started hitting the submarine, and he was forced to leave. Basically the rescue team, like he got a whole bunch of people on the sub, and the rescue team got cut off, and he was forced to leave them, and everyone thought that he was basically talking shit, that he got scared, that he was a coward, right? But he stood by the idea that something big almost caved in the side of the wall on the submarine. And you're like, okay, whatever. So then later on, you have this deep sea team, and they're exploring a part of a trench that they thought the trench went so far, but they've realized that there's this kind of cold gas in the water layer kind of thing, like a frost layer, and that if you go through it, there's a whole other area underneath that's warm, and that there's a lot of animals and stuff that are kind of stuck down there, kind of living at the bottom. And they go down there, and of course they discover there's a megalodon, which is, a gigantic fucking shark. And it attacks their sub, and this sub gets stuck down there. And they, and it is the ex-wife of Jason Statham. So, of course, they call Statham and say, hey, you're the best there is at this, so we really need you to do it. I also love this in movies where they have a character and they go, oh, don't call, I think his name is Jonas. They're like, don't call Jonas. Jonas is a fucking drunk, and he's just hanging out in Thailand drinking, right? And then you see Jonas, and he's sitting there at like a table with 10 beers, with like ripped abs, super fit looking. And I turned to my daughter and I was like, listen, nobody who drinks like that looks like that. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, this is a movie thing. They love to have somebody and be like, oh my God, look at his amazing body, but he eats terrible and he drinks like a fish. And I'm like, that doesn't happen. Like, unless there's cocaine involved and there's no food, it's just alcohol and cocaine. I was like, they don't look like that. Because remember, that was Kate Moss's diet through like the 90s or something, in the 80s or something like that. She said she basically lived off cocaine and alcohol. But like, I love when they do that, where they're like, oh, he's a drunk, he's no good. And you're like, okay, look at him. That, it's like having Chris Evans in Captain America form, like in that body type, play like an awkward, nerdy guy. And you're like, no. That guy looks like an Olympian god. That's not your nerdy guy who stays home all day playing video games. That doesn't happen. So anyway, Jonas Statham. They call him in, and there's this whole thing where basically he has to go down there, and then there's like the Meg attacks, and they realize it's attracted to the light, and they manage to rescue the people. Blah blah blah. Really not that fucking important. Because it's a so-so movie. There are some good gruesome deaths with the shark. Statham is funny as a guy who can't help but try to be the hero, even though he doesn't really. This is the type. He's like, I don't really want to be a hero, but I'm going to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And everybody, and the funny thing is, everybody knows he's badass, and everyone's like, Jonas can do it. He's badass. Like I do like a movie that is somewhat self-aware. And there's a lot of kind of homage to Jaws. The one genuine moment of shock is when they catch a Meg, and they think it's the Meg, and then a bigger one basically bites the fucking thing in half, and you're like, oh, okay, there's more than one. Even though they never really allude to the fact there's more than one, and it is kind of like out of left field surprise, right? Yeah, it's a good movie to watch when you're a little drunk with friends and you're looking for kind of like a bad, cheesy horror monster movie, right? That's my kind of review. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Sure.
Yeah. It's like you and I would watch The Meg and laugh at it, right? That's not the case for Meg 2. So apparently Meg 2, before it was even done, I guess Statham was annoyed because he wanted there to be he wanted there to be more blood, and he was upset that they made it into more of an action comedy, which that is kind of what it is. Also, the Meg is, I think it's almost completely Chinese produced, right? Like it's a lot of Chinese money. So
Sure.
the female co-lead in the Meg is a Chinese woman who then ends up with Statham at the end, and Statham kind of like, you know, he gets the girl, and then she has a young daughter. So Statham gets a young daughter at the end as well. And you're like, okay, that's very sweet.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, she didn't come back for the sequel.
Oh.
So they kill her off screen. Like when the movie starts, she's already been dead for a while. And Statham has a teenage Chinese daughter. Right? It's the same. No, hold on. It's the same actress. She's 4 years older because that's how long it took them to make the next movie.
Okay. I thought you literally meant they replaced.
No.
Pulled a reverse Kusanagi.
No. They didn't replace her. It's the same actress.
Okay.
She just grew up, right? So he has. She's there, right? But then
I thought you meant one of the daughters got killed off, and then suddenly he had a Chinese daughter, and I was like, "Whoa, that's ballsy."
So Statham's wife, Chinese wife, is killed off before the movie begins, and Statham is a single dad, right?
All right.
But they still want to have a Chinese co-lead, so they bring in her uncle, right? And the weird thing about this is they obviously wanted him to be like just as cool as Statham, right? But the problem is that you can't have two really badass characters unless you differentiate them, right? So all of a sudden,
situation. So if suddenly it's
exactly.
Jackie Chan or something, okay.
So suddenly Statham is like a martial artist, and he's kicking the shit out of people, and he's basically become what is it, the Transporter? Is that the movie the series he did, the Transporter?
Yeah. That's the main one. Yeah.
Well, so suddenly he's fucking Statham ninja, right? He's kicking the shit out of people. He's going after eco-terrorists. I mean, he's like, you know, he's become the character he plays in almost every other movie. Even though in the previous movie, he's just a rescue diver. He's just a right? So suddenly he's this big martial artist, right? Suddenly he's this kind of, and then the uncle, who I actually do like he's quite, they basically kind of make him into the funny action guy. So he's the funny guy. This apparently was his first English-speaking movie. He's got a lot of good action sequences. He throws a grenade into a squid, right? You do like him, and actually was impressed by the way they wrote them together, which is that they're not adversarial. They both love this one girl because it's their, you know, it's his niece, it's his stepdaughter, right? They both love her. So like, I didn't like the movie, and I still liked the two of them. And I was like, Jesus, I would watch a movie with these two that was properly written, right? But beyond that, the movie is so bad. It doesn't know what it wants to be. The Megalodons aren't even a big thing. There's 3 in this one, so that was their big thing. They're like, oh, there's 3 in this one. They didn't even show up till the end of the fucking movie, because the whole early part of the movie is like submarine accidents, and at one point they're in a deep sea submersible at the bottom of a trench. And
that's the weird part is the way they changed the naming. The first one is
Meg
called The Meg.
Trench.
The second one's called just Meg to the Trench.
The Trench, yeah.
What the hell?
Let me give you some pointers. At one point, they're at the bottom of a trench, right? He has to swim from one airlock to another to open a door that's been locked, and goes out with no suit, and just swims out into the water at the bottom of a trench with I don't even know how many atmospheres, and they're like pressing on his body, and they're like, well, you know what it is you just gotta push all the air out of your sinus so it doesn't get crushed, but you're only gonna have a minute before it knocks you unconscious. I mean, even my daughter at one point turned to me and she's like, isn't there like decompression or something? And I'm like, don't apply logic to this movie.
Yeah, no, really.
I was like, there's no decompression. The body count is low, right? The as Statham wasn't happy with, the murder blood factor is low. They did that thing where like they cut away right as something bad happens, so like someone gets attacked, and then there's a shit ton of homages to Jaws and Jurassic Park, because at in the bottom of the trench they get these like prehistoric aquatic animals that then come out.
I'm seeing pictures, and this looks very much like Jurassic Park.
It does, right? And they're almost like
the resort.
Yeah. Well, the finale of the movie ends up on a resort island where you have these.
Whoa. There's like a T-Rex. What is that?
Yes. Oh, that's in the very beginning. That's in the commercial.
Oh.
Yeah, that's not at the end. No, there's no T-Rexes.
Okay.
There's these. They're like iguana raptors. They're like low, but they're like raptor.
Why am I seeing a giant octopus strangling a shark? What is this?
Oh, it attacks one of the Megs. I'm gonna tell you, there's so much going on at the end here. That's the thing. Like you're getting ahead of me here. We've got raptors, right, that are attacking people on the island. We've got mercenaries who are trying to kill Statham and his crew because they've discovered there's an illegal mining operation. Hold on.
This is Jurassic Park. They're just doing it again.
We've got a squid that's attacking people that has to be stopped. The megalodons are fighting the squid and eating the people. And then Statham is fighting the megalodons. And let me tell you, single-handedly, with just a jet ski and some explosive spears.
I saw the jet ski, yeah.
He kills 2 of them.
This is somebody saw Godzilla destroy all monsters and just wanted to do that.
Oh my God. I mean, the thing is, like, Statham kills 2 and by himself, and you're just kind of sitting there going, well, shit, it's not really a problem if one bald British guy in good shape can fucking kill these things.
I got to tell you, though, there is a picture of one of them with all these scars and, like, it's
that's the big one.
It looks like Two-Face. I'm like, all right, I'm with a giant Two-Face shark.
But that's the thing that's annoying about it is that they obviously had the money. Right, the production value is all there. Nothing necessarily looks shitty. It's just written like crap. Doesn't know what it wants to be. It's like 3 different movies mashed together. And then the megalodons, which were the whole point of it, they're not even a problem until the end. And there is genuinely one sequence that is so good that I did laugh my ass off. Which is when the megalodons get to the island. There's hundreds of people in the water because it's like a resort island. Sure. And one of these big Megs just swims by with its mouth open, and they put the camera in the Meg's mouth, and you just see all the people getting, like, just going. There's like at least 40 of them just go right into the mouth.
That's funny.
So here's the thing, it's not good. Like, this is a bad movie. It's a bad movie. When you're watching it, you're sitting there going, what? Like, there's failures of logic. There's huge fucking plot holes. You know, you can clearly see that Statham is uncomfortable with the fact that he's been unseated as like the overall lead, right? It's gone from being like, this is a Statham movie to this is an ensemble piece. Where it's Statham and the Chinese uncle, who's very cool. I do like him. And he has a whole team of people. And the movie is obviously trying to keep up with everybody who's going in different directions.
I see the scene. I'm watching it. That's great. It's just chomping them down.
Yes, that is fantastic. You've now seen the best part of the movie.
Good. That's what I was hoping for. I've seen what I need to see. Excellent. Thank you.
So yeah, I mean, it's really good. And the thing is, when it happens in the movie, I think you've been waiting for something like that for so long that, like, I genuinely laughed, and my daughter thought I'd lost my mind. I laughed my ass off at that scene because I was like, oh God. See, if the movie had been more of that, if they'd really gone horror comedy with it, right, it would have been fantastic. It's just that it isn't. Like, the first part of it is, like I said, this submarine drama with, like, eco-terrorism and this mining operation, and then they want to kill Statham's team because they don't want anyone to find about it, and so it's like, then it becomes like this whole thing where mercenaries are attacking their water base and they have to fight them back, and then they're like, oh no, the Megs have gotten out, and oh, there's a squid, and then there's these iguanodons, and like, there's just all this shit, and it's like they threw everything at the wall and they were like, let's do all of it, right? But it's just, oh God, it's and the thing is, I think it was successful. I think that, like, overseas it actually did make a lot of money. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a Meg 3. I don't know if Statham will be in it, but, you know. And I don't honestly know where they can go at this point because they've already had, iguanodons, 3 Megs, and a squid, And what's annoying is, like, you saw that sequence, right, with the chomping thing?
Yes.
There are these little moments throughout the movie that you look at and you go, if the movie had been more of this, it would have been good. If the movie had been more of this, it would have been good. But then it gets back to whatever harebrained thing, and you're like, oh my God, this is terrible. So yeah, it made the Meg 1 look great.
Yeah.
And yeah. And honestly, you know what it is? It's a fucking kids movie. That's really what it is. Like, my daughter loved it because it was a psychotic kids movie. And maybe that's why Statham didn't like it, because he thought he was making like a gritty horror movie. But it's a fucking kids movie. There's no blood. Sure, people get eaten, but you never see any blood. Even you know what? There's a sequence that should have been fucking amazing, where they're in an airlock trying to get the airlock to basically pressurize, and there's a woman. They're all in their deep sea water suits, and there's one of the women that has a crack in her helmet, and the thing is slowly cracking, right? And if they don't pressurize the airlock before it cracks, her helmet's going to implode, right? And her helmet implodes. Now, that could have been done so well. That could have been so like, holy shit. But it just goes like a Coke can collapsing. And then there's nothing. The body just drops. And you're like, yeah, that's the thing. It's a neat idea. I like the idea of being in an airlock and having this race against time. Will it pressurize before my helmet implodes, right? Because, I mean, but then it's handled in such a PG-13 way. Where, like, there's no blood. They cut away at the last minute. Like, you don't get... Yeah, so it's... God, yeah, it was a bad flick. And the funny part is, I wouldn't even tell people not to see it. I would say, if you want to watch a bad movie, go ahead, watch it. Watch it and just be like, whoa, really? Like, I mean, it goes from deadly serious to slapstick within moments of each other. You know, and like the odds against the heroes, like there just doesn't seem to be any real danger. Like, they're constantly in danger, but they never feel like they're in danger because it's this movie. Like, you realize right away, you're like, they can't kill these people. They might kill some of the secondary characters. It's like, but you quickly kind of figure out who's not gonna die. So yeah, oh god, man, yeah. You know that when Statham turns around and goes, I don't think there was enough blood in this movie, and it's too funny, that there are problems.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But what's weird is, so I followed that up the last night, because my wife and my son came home, and we all watched Ready Player One together, which I'd never seen. You've seen Ready Player One at all?
No, that's another one where I watched some clips of it, and I went, I have no need to see this.
So I want to talk about this movie with a little more length, because I had a really strange reaction to this movie. This movie made me sad. And there's a lot going on here, but I think what really made me sad was they talk about, so in the very beginning of the movie, they talk about how bad the world is, right? So this is like 2045, the world's a fucking mess, everything's screwed up, and somebody creates this, somebody basically creates meta, right? That's essentially what it is. And it's called Oasis, but it's like, amazing. This is honestly fucking, what's his name? Zuckerberg, I think, probably watched this movie and was like, that's what I want to do, right?
Yeah.
And he creates this amazing world, and everyone kind of goes into the Oasis to escape the world. But what's funny is that, so they're explaining this in the beginning of the movie, and my daughter actually turned to me and goes, why didn't they make the world better? She's like, why did they just keep upgrading the Oasis? She's like, why let the world fall apart? And I was like, yep, you got a good point. I was like, why? I don't know. So it is a good movie when you don't think about it. If you just find a way to experience this movie on a very sort of surface level, right? It's a lot of fun, right? There's so many references. There's so many references that they actually ruin the mystique of them. And I think you said something about that, where you were like, there's just too many references.
Yes.
Yeah,
it drowns out any impact.
At one point, a character pulls out the glaive, right? Yeah. And uses it to save the hero. And that should be a fucking epic moment, if anyone even knows what they're referencing. And that's the other thing, is there's a lot of cuts in here where, like, certain people will know it, but a lot of people won't. Like the glaive is kind of one of those things where, like, I don't know how many people anymore are watching Krull. My kids had no fucking idea what it was. And that's the thing, is that moment should have been very epic, but it was a throwaway moment. It takes 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you've got you know, you've got Gundam, you've got the Iron Giant, you've got the Time Machine from Back to the Future. Bucker, yeah, he dresses up as Bucker Banzai, and I'm kind of sitting there going, does anybody you're talking to even know what this is?
That's it. Nope.
Like, who is this? I don't know who this movie is made for.
And the thing is, see, this is what annoys me. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Is if the movie had done a few, like the glaive, right? If the glaive had been used through the whole movie, and people are like, "Wow, that weapon is so awesome," and you don't, even if you don't know the Krull, right? If you were then to find out, oh, that's from another movie, that's what it's from, and you're like, "Wow, that weapon's great." You know, it's like that would be, if it was one of five things, it would be awesome. Instead, it's one of 5,000 things.
No, it's 5,000 things, and nothing is name checked, and nothing is important. Everything is just another prop.
Well, so like the most glaring example is the Iron Giant being a weapon, which is completely against the entire point of that fucking movie.
It's actually the avatar of one of the characters. She uses it.
But then obviously that person doesn't know anything about the character, so it's a perversion of the character.
At one point, one of the female characters pulls a pulse rifle out, and she starts firing at everybody. I caught it. Nobody else caught it. Nobody had any idea. She just pulled out a random gun. And that's the thing, is that this movie is written in such a way where it feels too simple for the people that these references are being written for. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm watching the movie going, I'm catching all these references, but I wish that this was written better. And I thought that it was because Ready Player One was a bad story, right? And that's what I thought. And then afterwards, I did some research about what they changed from the book. And so the book, essentially what is, the guy who creates the Oasis, he dies, and he leaves this kind of hidden keys and whatnot that you can unlock through various challenges that will then make it so that you essentially own the Oasis. You get all his stock and you become, you control it, right? So everyone wants it. It's interesting because I said to my wife, it's like they tried to make a cyberpunk movie, but run it through a fantasy movie mindset, which is go on the quest, kill the evil king, get the magic egg, become the king, right? So it's weird because it's like it's fantasy movie logic, but in a cyberpunk setting, which sounds like it'd be interesting if it was done better. But I get the sense that, I almost get the sense that Spielberg, this was like almost too futuristic an idea for him. I don't know. So yeah, there's so many references to things like the Akira bike is in there. What was some of the other weird shit? There's so many references to cartoons from my childhood in there. But either way, so the guy who created the Oasis, he was obsessed with the 80s. So the thing is, in the book, he's obsessed with just the 80s because that was his childhood. And so everything in the book is a reference back to the 80s. Whereas with the movie, they pretty much just went with pop culture. Because Akira isn't the 80s. Akira, I'm pretty sure isn't that 90s?
No, Akira is 88.
Is it late 80s?
Yeah, 1988.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Man, I always thought it was 91.
Nope. Yeah.
No, then I guess there's that, yeah. But apparently they used a lot of pop culture rather than 80s, and it makes it so that, like the Iron Giant, for example, is not the 80s. Iron Giant is...
No.
Yeah. And so when they did that, they kind of changed the focus. They also changed all the puzzles from the book. So in the book, apparently, there were all these puzzles, and you would basically complete one puzzle to get a key that would then open another challenge. So there was almost like 2 challenges for every section. And some of them were more cerebral than others. Whereas in the movie, they threw all that shit out, and the first one is like a car race through New York City with lots of monsters and shit like that. Which, listen, as an action sequence, it's great to watch, right? But again, if you watch this movie and you don't think about it, it's fantastic. It's like man. You know what? It's like, when they released the test footage for Tron Legacy, and you saw it and you're like, that's gonna be badass, right? And then you watch Tron Legacy and you're like, okay, it's a good movie, but it's got its hangups, right? That's kind of like watching this movie is like just getting that test footage, because the second you kind of delve deeper into it, you're like, okay, like there's my wife actually asked me, she's like, did they cut a lot of this movie? And the answer is yes. They just didn't film it. They cut a lot of the story. And this goes back to what I said earlier, getting a really good book and then cutting most of it out because you know better. And that's essentially what they did. I guess Spielberg didn't want any of his references to his movies really in there. So they took that out. And there's a big sequence with, you read about the Shining sequence, I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It was a big thing at the time.
They turn it into a comedy. My kids turn to me and they're like, why is The Shining scary? They do the sequence with the woman in the bathtub.
Yeah.
And they managed to turn it...
Whatever the room number was, yeah.
Yeah. It's like 216 or something, 216. I don't know.
Yeah.
They managed to make it funny. They PG-13 comedy it. And in a weird way, it kind of takes a dump on The Shining in a weird way. Like, I was kind of watching, I was like...
This is the essence of the problem, is the whole movie there's no reverence. It's reference, not reverence. That's the difference. There's a difference between reverence and reference.
And the characters are supposed to have a reverence. And they do. Like, you do get a sense that the characters themselves have a reverence for these things. But you can't tell if they have a reverence because it connects back to this thing that may make them lots of money, or because at one point the Buckaroo Banzai thing is a great example. He's going through outfits because he's going on a date with this girl, right? And the girl is another treasure hunter like him, and he's trying to impress her, and he's trying to impress her to some degree by showing that he knows this guy so well that his costume is a reference to how smart he is on the history of this character. So he starts going through costumes. So you sit there and go, do you actually want to look like Buckaroo Banzai? Or are you looking like Buckaroo Banzai because you think it will impress her that you know what Buckaroo Banzai is? You know what I mean? So the reverence gets kind of weird, because is it a reverence for Buckaroo Banzai, or is it a reverence for the person who loved it?
Ooh, interesting, yeah.
You know, and
I would say that it's probably for the person who loved it.
Yeah.
Again, you just sit there and go, if you love the Iron Giant, you wouldn't be using that avatar as a weapon. No.
No, the way, hold on. The way it's used in the movie, it's not used as, it's used as a protector. I wasn't really annoyed with it because the way I saw it, they were trying to protect the Oasis from corporate takeover. And the thing is, the Iron Giant was a protector. You know, so like and not to mention, it's not the Iron Giant. Like, the woman is using it as a suit. It's weird that they use the Iron Giant. Again, is it a reverence for the thing or a reverence for the person who liked the thing? Because at some point, somebody else busts out a Gundam suit. It's basically Iron Giant and Gundam versus Godzilla. Which is an interesting fight. It's not Godzilla, it's Mechagodzilla, right? But it's not the good Mechagodzilla, it's the fucking bad Mechagodzilla.
Right.
Yeah, and the thing is that going back to like the thing I learned about the book, so there's a company called IOI. In the book, they're apparently very scary. They're a cyberpunk style corporation. They've got their fingers in everything, and they are genuinely dangerous. And the thing is, yeah, because they want control of the Oasis. So they want to find this thing more than anybody because they want to own it. And in the movie, they kind of come off like kind of cheesy. They come like there's almost something. I'm going to say this again. I think this is for the second time tonight. It's kind of like a kid movie. It's kind of like Spielberg took what was a genuinely kind of dark vision of the future and said, hey, let's make a kid movie out of this. Because in the book, IOI is actually very scary. And the world that these people live in is very desperate. And it's far more depressing. Like, apparently, the first 100 pages of the book really just explains to you how desperate the world is. The main character has lost his parents at some point. He's living on his in his aunt's. He sleeps on his aunt's like washing machine because there's no room. They're very poor, and then like there's things that the book tells you that they didn't bother to put in the movie. So like we were like, well, where does he go to school? Apparently all the schools have been pushed into the Oasis because that's where people go. Everybody's very out of shape because no one wants to leave their houses if they don't have to. So everyone does everything in the Oasis. So apparently in the book, the main character starts out very out of shape and very overweight. And then when he gets better equipment that enables him to physically move as if he's moving in the Oasis, he becomes more physically fit and more active and more healthy. And it's like there's that stuff, that those details are kind of what make a story like that more interesting. It's those kind of weird little details. I'm actually, this is so weird, having seen the movie and kind of been annoyed with it after the fact, I actually want to read the book because it sounds like a lot of the things I was annoyed with are things that the book had. There are things that were absent that the writer put in that were then taken out. And the references are more under control. So I'm so curious now to see what is different about the book, and I wonder if I'm actually going to enjoy the book. I avoided the book because I thought that the movie was really what it was, that they made it authentic, but it's not authentic at all. They changed so much about it.
I have always been told the book is very forgettable. Not bad, but not good. So,
well,
no, read it. See what you think. I mean, no.
There's one sequence in particular that I thought was that when it was happening, I was like, wait a minute. So the bad guy has his password written on the side of his unit, his like VR unit, right? Mm-hmm. And at one point, they basically have a hologram of the hero in because they want to try and convince him to work for them. And the hero sees the password. And I thought, okay, that's really stupid. And I don't know if they did that in the book, but it's kind of really dumb that your big bad guy would have his main password right there on his unit for you to see. Right? This will be a phrase that gets uttered later tonight. Where is the security? Right? So then the hero then uses that password to later on, when the villain is jacking out, they're able to kind of intercept him, right? And make him think that he's jacked out, but that and that they've got him cornered, right? But the thing is, at no point has anyone said that the Oasis can look like reality. Like you kind of get some of that in spats, but all the major sections of the Oasis, they look like computer graphic real. They don't look real, right? So then suddenly we have this scenario where everything looks super realistic. And the guy's like, oh, he doesn't realize that he's still in the Oasis. But then I'm like, yeah, but they're wearing a rig. Like, that's the other thing that's easy to ignore in a movie because you're just looking at it. But it's like, that guy is still wearing a helmet on his head. Right? So you are tricking him into thinking that he doesn't feel a helmet on his head. Right? It's like, but it's there. And then he realizes it's there after a while, where he reaches up and he touches his head and he realizes the helmet is still on his head and that he's still in the Oasis. But it's kind of there's a suspension of logic there. And I vaguely read somewhere that is the scene they invented for the movie that's not in the book. And I'm kind of like, yeah, well, if that's true, then it makes a lot of sense because they seem to have thrown out a lot of the well thought out elements of the book. And the whole fact that it's a throwaway book, that doesn't really scare me. I've read so much cyberpunk that was throwaway. And honestly, it's kind of the throwaway stuff that I find more fun because it feels less heavy. It's interesting. People are willing to make thought experiments and do kind of crazy shit. So knowing that it's kind of a throwaway book, but it's not bad, makes me want to read it even more. But
no,
it's just,
I wouldn't even say it's just a book that is not throwaway. It's just the way I've always heard it described is you wish it was a better book. That that there's ideas in it.
Yeah, and
so
and this
you'll
movie,
get something out of it. I mean, it's kind of like a B movie for me. I'm sure you'll read it and be like, oh yeah, if only this was better written.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Was the same thing with the movie? Is the movie looks beautiful, and if you,
wow,
you know,
man, I'll tell you what, the clips I saw, I could not get around how fake it all looked. I mean, I know it's supposed to
be. Because there are times where it is
bad.
supposed to look fake. When they're in the Oasis, it's supposed to look
No,
fake.
I get that, but outside, everything looks so artificial to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically an animated movie. I think that's the other part that I thought was funny, which is that so much of this movie is in the Oasis, and it ends up being that like you're watching an animated film most of the time. And
it feels like it's 5 years before it should have been made or so. Like if they just waited a little bit.
No, because I don't think the special effects were the problem. I think the writing was the problem.
Well,
I think
I don't disagree, but I think some of the Oasis stuff probably just needed a slight, because it's almost there from what I saw.
Well, and the thing is, it doesn't need to be photorealistic. It just needs to be. It's just there to let you know that you're in a high-tech gaming environment.
Sure.
Right? That's all it really is. And that's why that sequence where they pop the guy out and he thinks he's out of the world, but he's really still in the world, makes no sense, because the technology never presents itself as being more real than real. Yeah. Right? Everything is video game graphics. Yeah, everything is high-end video game graphics. But at no point do you walk around the Oasis thinking you're in the real world. You'd rather be in the Oasis because it's this beautiful, smoothed out candy color, world, whereas the real world is shit. And apparently that's another thing, is that you don't realize how shit the world is, because largely they throw it out. You know that there's debtor prisons, like corporate debtor prisons, and you know that a lot of people are poor, but they don't really give you this is something we're getting a lot lately with these high-end directors, which is this idea that they know how to make a good-looking movie, but they don't seem to recognize a good script anymore. And it's almost like they know how to recognize a good source material. And a great example is Spielberg did Minority Report, right? Or was that Scott?
No, that was Spielberg.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Minority Report is a great example of showing kind of this Spielberg weakness, which is that Minority Report is a really beautiful looking movie, right? But there are weird holes in the logic. And when you're watching it, you're like, well, how does that make any sense? And so like it's it never becomes story-wise the amazing movie it could be. It looks great, but story-wise it's kind of okay. And that's where I get to with this, which is that visually I think it looks really good. Story-wise it's kind of okay. There's a lot of stuff where I was like, there's a sequence at the end where the corporate guy has found where their mobile unit is in the real world, and he's gotten there and he's got a gun, and all he's got to do is go through the door, right? And then he slows down. He walks up to it slowly. I'm like, dude, that he's about to get the thing that you don't want him to get, and you walk up to that truck. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't run. Plus, I was like, when he opens the door and realizes that the guy is holding the thing that, I'm kind of mystified why he doesn't still shoot him. The guy hasn't, it's this whole, there's something very, it's a kid's movie. He can't shoot him. It's a kid's movie. If you knew you were in a kid's movie, you would know that there were things you could get away with. There's things that wouldn't happen. Right? And I'm like, yeah, this is a Spielberg, tween movie. He's not going to let a kid get shot in the chest right at the end of the movie. And listen, maybe the logic in the book is better. I think that's really what I want to know. I want to read the book so I can know if the logic in the book was better, if it was better explained. Because I get that all the time. Where, I remember I read The Fifth Element, the novelization of The Fifth Element. Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
And there were so many weird things that the author explained. And I was like, oh, man. I was like, Jesus, reading the book made me like the movie more. But then because it kind of filled in the logic about shit. But then the book changed the ending. Zorg doesn't die in the novelization, amazingly. Like he ends up on the beach planet below it, stranded.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, really? I was like, were you allowed to just change the ending that way? Like, but yes, they explain things. Whereas when you watch The Fifth Element, it's beautiful to look at, but nothing makes any fucking sense. It's a fashion model's vision of the future.
That's it.
You know, and this Ready Player One, the movie, is very much like that. Where like it's beautiful, it's a video game fever, a pop culture fever dream, with reference galore. But as a story, it's okay. It's kind of okay. And you're like, yeah, with the amount of money they spent on this, and the like, I mean, Simon Pegg is in this. He's completely wasted. He's like in the beginning, at the end, and then apparently he did the voice of a butler software that they had throughout the movie, so he was secretly helping. But you never realize it's Simon Pegg. It could have been fucking anybody. So Simon Pegg is wasted. You know, yeah, it's just, and I had a weird Matrix moment with this, which is when you see the Matrix for the first time, you're amazed by it, right? I was amazed by it. And then I stopped and said, you know what, that was a really good movie. But I've seen a lot of this stuff before. And the thing is, if you read and watched all the same shit the Wachowskis did, right, you kind of get a sense of where they pulled it all from. And you go, okay, it's not as original as I thought it was, but it's still very cool, and it's written well. I enjoy it. I got that sense with this movie where it's like, well, I know all these things that you're pulling it from. Like, story-wise, it's like, you know, I read all the Cyberpunk. I've watched all the Cyberpunk. I know where you're pulling this shit from. Which makes it less amazing to me. Not to mention, I know all the references. I know where they come from. And I have fucking reverence for these things. I mean, you're getting irritated about the Iron Giant, and you haven't even seen the fucking movie. So, it made it less amazing. Like, you know, the second you catch a moment to kind of think about it, you're like, oh yeah. It's like, wait a minute. It's like, this is not as amazing because it's just you're throwing every reference at me, but like you said, there's no reverence. So yeah, it's I was initially like, oh yeah, and then like the second I had a moment to think about it, I was like, oh, and like I said, the movie kind of made me sad. You know, because outside of my review, I think it is an apt vision of the future, in the sense that people will let the world slowly slip into complete destruction while making the virtual spaces better. You know, it's this kind of logic of, and it kind of came on I had just been thinking about the future of humanity, and the speed at which our technology is kind of evolving, but our culture's not evolving, and the you know, just having this kind of negative view of society, which I can't imagine why I have it of late. But and then I saw this movie and I was like, yeah, I was like, a horribly ecologically destroyed future where everyone is poor and they're hiding in the internet because the outside world is horrible, and there's corporate corruption and they have power over like people, and they can just stick you in a debtor's prison to work for them, and I'm watching, I'm like, yeah, it's like this doesn't feel like escapism. This feels like, you know, a very astute vision of what our future could be like. So it was kind of grim in that respect, because you're like, yeah, it's like, oh, you know, so I probably never would have seen this movie if it wasn't for my kids, because I had kind of avoided it. And I don't know why I avoided it, because it looked cool. And I think the thing is, like, when you just look at it, it looks cool. This is the whole music video thing, where it's like a music video looks cool. You're watching the music video, you've got cool theme music, and you're like, yeah. But then when the music video is over, you think about that music video, and you're like, God, that was fucking ridiculous. And this movie's kind of like that. It's like a music video. You know, we just what is it? We reviewed that movie Obsession. And the guy who directed that basically wanted it to look like a music video. And the thing is, it does. It looks fantastic. if it didn't look like a music video, I don't think it would have been a very good movie. I think the music video-ness is what elevates it. But it elevates it because it also makes you not see like it. The failures of storytelling or logic are completely excused because the vibe and the look of it is so good, right?
Yeah.
And that's Ready Player One. It looks good. You're overwhelmed by the references, but then when you get a moment to stop and think about it, and you don't have the music in your ear anymore, you sit there and you go, I guess it was okay.
Right.
Yeah. So that concludes my weird tour of PG-13 movies, of which Ready Player One wasn't part of the horror thing. That was just the movie that I tacked on at the end to watch with my family.
Sure.
Yeah, I want when you want a movie to be good, you really want it to be good.
I always want a movie to be good.
Oh, there's movies that you watch and you're like, whatever, I don't care. But there's movies you see and you're like, I really want that to be good. I want that to be fucking amazing.
Sure.
And then you watch it and you're like, but you're just not. And yeah. And I think it's what it is when we're at that point where the trappings of our youth are being used as window dressing of the future. And it bothers you because you're like, hey, I grew up with this shit. I fucking love this shit. And you're just using it as a gag.
Right.
And you're like, and I realize that, to some degree I have to kind of check it on myself, whatever. The future is going to use these things in whatever way they want. But emotionally, it's like, well, you're playing with core stuff with me. So like I have kind of a knee jerk to it. And then I'm like, I just need to step back and be like, whatever, that's fine.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to use this shit the way they use it, when they use it. And I have to allow that everybody has their own. It's the whole, art is interpretive. Everyone does with it what they want. So Buckaroo Banzai means one thing to me, and it means something else to you. And it obviously means something else to the writer of the book. And it means whatever it means to the people who made the movie.
Well, this is like in the Space Jam sequel where they have the Droogs from Clockwork Orange in a feel-good, like, kids sports movie. So obviously...
Really?
Nobody thought about... Yes, they're in there. These are drug-addicted rapists
as
in
cartoons?
Space Jam 2. No. Live action. They're in there.
Really?
Yes.
Hold on.
Oh, you didn't hear about this?
I did not hear about this.
Oh, yeah. It's not... They didn't go so far as to digitally, like, insert the original actors. Yeah, here it is. Why are the Droogs in Space Jam 2? They're right there.
Oh, shit. Yeah, they're right there.
Yeah.
Why are they there?
Because it's reference, not reverence. They just wanted to dump every IP they owned in there. Like the what do you call it? It's from Fury Road. The War Boys are in there. They dumped every single thing they owned in there. But that's the one that really sticks out because it's like those are drug addicted rapists, guys.
I think they do
like
that.
you can't figure that any other way.
Oh, I love this. This one article. It's like you had Droogs in the movie, but you cut Pepe Le Pew.
Right. Well, that's the funny part.
Well, you're like, well, Pepe Le Pew was a rapist. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
But the Droogs? The Droogs are rapists.
The Droogs are rapists who beat a woman to death with a giant penis.
That's funny. Oh man, yeah, that is funny.
Yeah.
And I think they do that because they make these kids movies, and they're like, "Oh, we got this kids movie, but we want the parents. We want to nod to the parents so they're not completely bored."
Well,
and
I think what the real reason most people believe they did it is because the way that IP works and renewals work is
if they don't use it, they lose it.
If they don't, yeah. So by putting every single thing they own in the scenes of this movie, even as a 1 second thing, they renew it.
Are you telling me that Ready Player One is just basically the studio's attempt to make sure they can hold on to a ton of shit?
That movie was based on a reference book.
Oh, I know.
What a lot of people think Space Jam 2 is because of that. I mean, that's famously why they kept making Hellraiser movies, even though they kept being shittier and shittier, was because they didn't want to lose Hellraiser.
Is the glaive in the book? I'm curious.
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I would guess it probably is because it's a good weapon.
Let's see.
Yeah, but, yeah. Ask Jeeves.
Well, I'm asking the internet. Let's say.
Well, that's the same thing.
Does he use it? Doesn't say.
Does it say whether it's in there at all?
Well, hold on. Ready Player One. Oh man, do they have to? There's a mystical 5-pointed weapon used by Colwyn in the 1983 science fiction.
Colwyn, oh, that's cute.
As the Iron Giant is being shot in the ravine, Show selects the weapon and throws it. No, but that's in the movie.
That's the movie.
Yeah, but isn't the book? Is it in the book?
Hold on, let's see. How about Ready Player One book reference list? Oh, here it is. All right, the complete list. Hold on, it's a long list. I have to look.
You're going to be here all night.
No, I'm doing this. Yes, Kroll is referenced in the book. Now, whether it's the glaive, I don't know, but I don't know what the hell else they would reference.
Yeah, I know. And it seems like something that they would reference because it is 83.
That's what I'm saying. It's a good weapon.
Yeah. So,
like I said, Kroll, I cannot imagine. There's only 3 things from Kroll anybody would ever realistically reference. Well, okay,
the horses.
Sorry, 4.
The horses.
Yeah, I was going to say the Thunder Mares, the Widow of the Web, the Cyclops, and the glaive.
That's 4.
That's what I said, 4. I meant it to 4. I said, 4. Because I thought of the Widow of the Web. Because even the Beast isn't recognizable.
No.
So that's the
honestly,
4 things.
I would say that the Widow of the Web, I think most people would forget her and just remember the Cyclops, the horses, and the glaive.
Well, no, if you had the giant spider and a woman sitting inside, they would know what it is. It's not just her. You'd have to have the giant glass spider, too. I mean, you have to have the whole thing.
The whole thing.
Like if Ready Player One, he had to go and get an encryption key, and he went into a giant web with this giant, like, translucent spider and a woman who held the encryption key. That would make sense. That would be a good Kroll reference, actually.
Yeah, because really, like I said, in the movie, he literally just pulls the glaive out and just chucks it at the guy and saves the main character. And you're like, okay. Look, but you know what? It could have been anything. And I think that's really what it is that some of these things are handled with such...
You are correct. That's exactly why I'm saying reference, not reverence.
Yeah.
If you could interchange its use, right? If he had taken the glaive out, I mean, this...
And then the music had gone, whoa. Like, you know what? There is reverence for one movie in this. I did notice this.
Yeah.
Which is that there is a huge reverence for Back to the Future.
Okay, I was going to say, it's got to be Back to the Future.
They even use the music. When the music comes in now and then when they do stuff, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's, I think, one of the only things I think that gets musical reference in there. Yeah. And so that kind of communicates. I mean, let's see. Is there
okay, here's the thing, right? So the hero uses the glaive, right?
No, he doesn't. It's one of his friends.
See? Okay, that tells me in front. The way you do it properly is you have the hero use the glaive, and then you have his girlfriend shoot fire from her hand. And then it would make sense.
Oh, that would be funny.
No, it would, because that was the whole thing. Is like the woman had the control of fire. She gave fire, and he had the glaive.
Okay, so the musical references. They used musical references to Back to the Future, King Kong, Godzilla, and The Shining. And then they have music from Van Halen.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean...
at Spielberg's request, Silvestri references his own music from Back to the Future within the film's score, as well as quoting music written by other composers, including Max Steiner's theme from King Kong, Akira's Ifekube's main theme. Not the movie Akira. Akira Ikafube's main theme from Godzilla, and the score composed by Wendy Carlos and Rachel Ekman from...
I don't know. I don't even know what the King Kong theme is.
I don't know what it is either.
No, I know Godzilla's theme. Dun, dun, dun. Like, that's an easy one. Everybody knows... Well, if you know Godzilla, you know that theme because they use it
this is interesting. There's a list of songs from the novel. Because he references songs from the novel. Yeah, and here... Listen. The list of music from the novel is completely different because it's The Police, Journey, R.E.M., The Clash, They Might Be Giants, Devo, Van Halen, Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, Pink Floyd, Midnight Oil, Rush, Falco. Like, okay, that's... yeah. I'm going to read the book. I am so curious as to how this is handled by the author.
Yeah.
And how different it is, because now that I've read the amount of things they've changed, and like I said, this is the whole,
well, okay.
books and movies
Number one,
aren't the same.
I have no doubt it will be better than the movie. I would say that sight unseen.
All right.
I'm sure it's better than the movie. Whether it's hey, we'll see. I'll let you. You can read it, and judge it. I have no interest. I don't. I didn't before.
I did. You know what? I didn't have an interest, and now I do, just because I'm curious to see how they handle it differently.
I'm starting.
And I kind of want to know.
I'm at an age now where I'm starting to go, do I want to waste minutes of my life on certain things anymore?
You know what?
I don't think so.
I've been reading a lot more of late, and I
have too, but I'm trying to branch out a bit in my reading now. I'm reading right now what has to be the angriest book I've ever read, but in a good way.
What's that?
It's called Those Beyond the Walls.
Oh Jesus. That's the title.
It's basically it's all a metaphor for racism, but I guess it'd be science fiction, not cyberpunk. But boy, it's a fascinating world. It is. I'm not going to do a whole review of it because I'm not done with it. But man, the way this book is set up, everything is based in violence and anger as a response to punishment and hatred. It's just it's a crazy world.
Well, I look forward to your review.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, honestly, the reality is I have 2 bookcases that are double stacked with books that I need to read. And now that I'm not doing business with Amazon and I'm having more issues finding books, I'm really leaning on my bookshelves, and I'm thinking, you know what? I should just read what I've got. Because the problem is, like, I'd read one from the stack, and then I'd read something new, and then I'd read like 1 or 2 from the stack, and I'd get something new. And I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe just take a few years off and just empty the stack out a little bit, because I got a lot of good stuff in there that I just, things that are out of print. And honestly, that's probably what I'll do. And the thing you say about, it's like I don't have the minutes to spare on some of these things. I do and I don't, because sometimes I read a lot of really heavy nonfiction, and sometimes I need something that's just kind of dumb to just enjoy. And the thing is, if I could read something breezy like Ready Player One and enjoy it, that'd be good. Because like there's some sci-fi you read that's just so heavy that you're like Philip K. Dick. I had to stop reading Philip K. Dick because every time I went into that guy's mind, he just made me want to fucking end it. I mean, well,
that's a place where you do bookend a dick reading
but like
with light stuff.
But like Michael Moorcock, one of the things I like about Michael Moorcock's books is that he knows how to make it so that it feels like it's so intense, end of the world, look at the scale of this shit. And then when you take a step back, you're like, it's really kind of light fiction. Like, he makes you, when you're reading it, makes it feel so intense. But then you take a step back and you're like, oh, this is just like fun fantasy. And I've read, he wrote a book about how he writes his novels, which I read. And one of the things he does is he's all about ramping up the ante and creating like a massive time frame where everything feels like it's crushing on you. And I'm like, it's like that trick they use in soundtracks where they use that one rhythm that like creates tension in people to make a scene like more tense. Yeah. Right. And that's the thing is, like, the second you introduce a time frame in your book where something's going to happen, right, it raises the tension. It makes you go, oh shit, something is imminent. Something is going to happen. No matter what, it's going to happen. And like, I love that about Moorcock. You're so in it while you're reading, and then you take a step back and you're like, oh, that was refreshing. But yeah, I just
sure.
I think I'm getting just tired of like the angry books. I want to read them, but man, I'm tired.
Yeah, I don't generally read them either. This one was kind of an accident one.
And you didn't realize what it was, or just the reviews
well,
are so
I
good?
I didn't know. I didn't know it was like. I didn't know this was it. But
hey, listen, I didn't think that the Doctor stuff was going to be so intense.
Yeah.
But it was really intense. And Doctor was a strange author because I like to complain about his characterization, but I love his stories. And he is one of those few authors that has... He's one of the few authors that's gotten me to read one of his books in one sitting, which is Someone Comes to Town and Someone Leaves Town, which is a book that my wife read, and she was like, it's okay. Whereas I read that book, and I was like, this book is incredible. And I think this is the whole... Oh, God, what is that phrase? One man can read one man can read War and Peace and think it's a fun adventure story, and some people can read the what do you call it? The ingredients of like a packet of cookies and find the secrets to the universe. I can't remember where that's from, but that's kind of the idea, is that, you know, you never know what's going to jog people's mind to think.
Sounds like a version of one man's garbage is another man's treasure.
Yeah. But it's that whole thing, is that, you know, that book, Someone Comes to Town, Someone Leaves Town, that something in that book just, it's a huge metaphor book, but something about that book, it just so like tied into me in a way that I can't, like a deep set emotional thing. I was tense about what the fuck was going to happen in that book by the end. I needed to read it. I needed to know. And I read it in one night. I sat down reading it and just read. I read all through the night. This is when I was in my nocturnal phase. This is pre-marriage and kids. I read all night, and I could not put it down. And it's one of the few books. I'm trying to think if there's another book that I've read in one sitting. And, like, I know I read Ender's Game in, like, probably 2 days or 2 or 3 days. But honestly, Doctor might be the only one now that I think about it. But but you know, it's like, but his books also cause my brain to go weird. You know, yeah. And you know what? Maybe it's good that his characterization is not great, because it's like it makes it so you're not just totally sucked into it, because you're like, your story's amazing, but your characterization's a bit weak, and that makes it so that I don't just totally get absorbed into this.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Would you like to present?
Yeah. Lando and I watched the movie again.
You know, if I could get married again, that would be the music I would play when my wife walked down the aisle.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I have to admit, it's pretty good. Yeah. So this was. I think I picked this one.
You did,
because I don't recall ever seeing this movie. You think you saw it when you remembered parts of it?
No, I saw. So I definitely saw this movie when I was like in probably early college, late high school.
Okay.
I definitely saw because I remember her. And here's the thing, is that when you see the female lead in this movie, she's pretty memorable.
Yes.
Would you agree?
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I remember her, and I remember, I starkly remember scenes from this, but I had forgotten almost like the entire second half of it. So I remember her getting dying and getting infected and all that shit, but I forgot I completely forgot everything, like, you know, the sequence in the sewers and Riverman and all that shit, which is arguably like the most hilarious part of the movie.
Well, we should probably say what the movie is. So we're talking about 1993's Return of the Living Dead 3, which I remember seeing the artwork for it. I remember seeing the VHS of it and the poster for it, because it's a very striking piece of artwork.
It always reminded me of the Nightbreed, the way she looks.
I always think of of Freddy in Dream Warriors, where he's got the needle hands.
Yeah, but like, I guess all the spikes that
Nightbreed is there too.
Face.
Sure,
yeah, it makes me
it's
think of
definitely
Nightbreed.
Or Hellraiser. I mean, you know, it's all of a kind. It's the kind of body mutilation thing. But I know I skipped this because I remembered 2 was not very well received. I remember watching Return of the Living Dead, the first one, which is good. It's great, really, for numerous reasons. And then I remember the second one came out, which was essentially a continuation of that same storyline, more or less. And I just remembered people saying it wasn't that good. So then I thought, well, 3 can't be any good. I didn't realize that they did something completely different with 3.
It was a departure, yeah.
Yeah, and the Blu-ray, which I will have tomorrow, whenever, does have a commentary by the actress, which I can't wait to hear. I want to hear what she thinks about this movie. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, you know what? I did some reading about her afterwards. And this was her first movie.
Yeah.
This is her first big hit, and she didn't want to do a lot of horror because she didn't want to get known as a scream queen. And if you look at her IMDb, I mean, she's had a big career. She was on like the OC for a while, and then she was on Days of Our Lives, and then she was on is it CSI? Not CSI. Which is the one with William Peterson?
Yes, that is CSI.
So so she had a reoccurring dominatrix character on CSI, and like if you look at her IMDb, she has fucking worked, and she has done a lot of different shit. She did a horror movie though, another horror movie that I sent you a link to. Did you see that with the tongue?
I did see that. Yes.
I'm almost curious about that because apparently Robert Englund is in that as well.
I'm trying to remember. Hold on, let me see.
I mean, I don't think it's going to be good, but it might be fun.
I mean, it's only $4. So, an alien meteorite. Yeah. I mean, is she? She's not the lead, or she is the lead now?
No, she's the monster.
Oh yeah, she is. Well, she's the monster. Well,
she's the tongue monster.
So is this a species type of thing?
I don't. It doesn't look.
Listen, I'd watch it. I would
watch the trailer for it. It's a certain kind of movie.
Okay.
But either way, she's very good. I don't know what she's like in this movie, but she's very good. She's very good in this.
She's great. She's the best thing in this. By far, she's the best person in it as far as acting or anything else. So, yeah. So, this was our pick. This is free to watch, by the way, on Tubi, all over the place. Which, again, I think people just generally regard this movie unfairly as not that great. But it is not at all what I think. Well, since I never saw it, I had no expectations. You didn't remember the second half.
No,
so
and the thing is, I remember it because it's not a zombie outbreak movie. Usually when with a zombie movie, it's like, well, the zombies have gotten out and they're fucking everywhere, right? And this is a movie after a zombie outbreak where things are under control and the government is experimenting.
Yeah, weirdly, there isn't ever that much concern that the zombie outbreak could happen. I mean, they want to contain it, but they're not really all that concerned about it.
And even at one point, I realized this after the thing, at one point, the Riverman says to the main guy, she's dead, isn't she? Even though she's, walking around and doing shit. And it's the whole, she's a zombie. You've realized she's a zombie. You're not freaking out. You're freaking out at other shit, but she's a zombie. And it's not that weird.
No.
So yeah, I did like that about it, that it's not just this, because normally it's like, oh, there's zombies. Oh, there's more zombies. There's an outbreak. There's an endless wave of zombies. Run! And it's like, will they survive? Where will they go? Right? Whereas the world's fine. The military's got it under control, sort of. But certain places will get overrun.
Well, zombies are like nuclear waste. Put them in barrels, seal them up, you're fine. Just don't open it. And really, that's what they're treating them like nuclear waste at this point.
Yeah, they are.
But for anybody who hasn't seen it, essentially, this is Romeo and Juliet with some zombies. And we start off, we see the movie, and there's this kid who's a military brat, and he's dating a girl who's into pain and stuff like that a bit. Not heavy, but, clearly doesn't mind kind of putting a flame on her hand and getting a little rough in the sack and looking at perverted shit, like people torturing zombies type of perverted shit.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the Bernie thing is a red flag. The other red flag for me is the fact that they just finished having. Did they just finish, or they were like still doing it? And she started like talking about the zombies and the death and all this stuff, and I was like, oh man, yeah, you are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she
special.
clearly got aroused by breaking into the military facility. I mean,
it's weird because she is fucking nuts, but their relationships does seem very genuine nonetheless.
Well, I don't.
And
know.
I like
okay.
that.
I don't know that she's nuts. I think that
she just very specifically likes a thing.
Well, look, I had a period of my life, not that it was sexual in nature, but where I was watching like the guinea pig films and all kinds of stuff that was like extreme stuff because I'm like, yeah, I want to see that, this crazy shit nobody else.
Yeah, but you weren't getting like aroused by it.
Well, but that's not to say that if I'd met a girl who was, and I wouldn't have been like, yeah, we're on the same wavelength.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Okay, but when you're younger, right? If you met a girl and she was like, "I'm really turned on by this," you'd be like, "A girl's talking to me. I'm going to be turned on by this too."
Well, and I'm just allowing for the fact that things that you're not always sure about what you're into or not when you're young.
She seems like a very fun girl. It's part of the reason why she's dead.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So they go and they spy on this kid's father, who is part of a military unit that is trying to figure out how to weaponize and control zombies. And essentially...
Now, hold on. We have to mention this because it's important. His father is played by Crichton's dad from Farscape.
Yeah, Kurt McCord? Or Kirk Cord? I
remember that. And the other scientist is Zora from Superman 2.
Is that her name? Is her name Zora?
Is it Zora? Is it Zora her name?
Hold on. No, I think it's like Ursa. Hold on.
Is it Ursa? Sorry. Yeah,
there you go. Because it's Zod and... hold on. What is her name? Because I really feel like I should get it right. Her name is Ursa. Oh, I had it right. Yeah, Sarah Douglas is the actress' name.
Job.
Who I knew right away. As soon as I saw her name...
So the two of them...
Like, oh, that's Ursa. I know that.
The two of them are there, and it's like, okay, this is kind of a neat sci-fi vibe here.
Well, and they're essentially two different factions. Ursa is trying to build an exoskeleton that the zombies will power as living batteries, whereas Crichton Sr. is more trying to be able to deploy the zombies and just be able to shut them down
and
using
then
a cryo bullet.
Them, Yes.
Yeah,
which honestly does work. Works way better than hers.
It works temporarily, and the problem is they don't. It's not long term. Whereas sealing them up in barrels seems to be long term.
Yeah. And here's the thing: the failures. One of my glaring issues with this movie is I know what kind of movie it's supposed to be, but there are some glaring failures of logic. Like, people do a few things in this movie where I'm like, really? I was like, it's a fucking zombie, and you're acting like this. Like, it's just there are moments.
Okay, so yeah, I don't disagree. The thing is that there is such a massive logic hole in this movie's entire existence at all.
Yes, the entirety of it. Yes,
which is all you have to do. I said this to you when we were watching. Is all you have to do is extract the brain, because they're talking about how they can't destroy the zombies. They can't figure out how to destroy them. Well, yes, you can. You basically open the head up, take the brain out, cut the cord, and throw it into a
clearly they're
trash
wrong
bag.
Because the leads figure something out, don't they?
Well, yes, the leads figure it out. This what I'm saying
Whereas I think on the recording we did of it, because you should mention that we also recorded it. So
yeah, we did do a commentary, so this will be on the Patreon if you want to see it. That's where it is.
But I kept saying, why just stick them in a blender? Just blend them up into chunky sauce. Like, are they going to come back from that? Is it sentient sauce?
My suspicion is that we misunderstood what they were saying about stopping them, because it just doesn't make any sense. Hold on, let me look.
I'm looking at
Maybe what they meant was shutting them down after they deployed them. Like, how do we stop them? Here it is. Overseeing experiments to see body corpses. The military hopes to use zombies in combat. However, they are impossible to control, as their hunger for human brains causes them to constantly... See, I think that's what they're... I think we misheard or misunderstood what they were saying, which is not that they didn't know how to destroy them. It's that they didn't know how to make them stop.
Okay.
Because what they're saying in this... Yeah, and that makes way more sense, is because the guy says, oh, great, you've got this happening. Now we could just drop these into enemy territory and then just put them back into storage. So, they immobilize. So her idea, Ursa's idea, is the exoskeletons will make them just freeze by holding them. And then Crichton Sr. is like, well, if we can just freeze them or stop them, they'll go into a stasis. And it's like, which of the two things is working? And clearly I think the idea is the bullet is probably more cost effective than making exoskeletons for every one of these things. And we see that it doesn't work anyway at the end. So we're watching
works,
this experiment.
It just doesn't work in the way they want it to work.
Well, but realistically though, all you would have to do is break the suit. They weren't making him out of adamantium as far as we can tell. They're just metal. So... So at the beginning, we see Crichton Sr. is running an experiment, and they reanimate this thing. They shoot it. It seems to go down. Then one of the guys in the room is a dummy and sticks his fingers into its mouth for reasons that beggar any understanding. Yeah. This movie's priority is clearly between Julie and Kurt. Is his name Kurt?
Kurt.
Yeah.
Kurt or Kurt?
I don't know if that's a Cobain reference or what. I think it's Kurt. Yeah, I think it's Kurt. I'm pretty sure. In any event, I think that's where they want you to be focused. The rest of it is just kind of window dressing, which is fine. That's okay.
Well, no, listen. The whole point of this movie is the fact that he doesn't want to let her go, and she is fighting the zombification process.
Right.
And the only thing that brings her back to reality is him.
Right. So they see this thing happen. She
Kurt,
gets turned
it's
on.
Kurt with, Kurt with a C.
All right, there you go. So Kurt, not Cobain, even though he's totally Seattle, like dressed. This is a grunge era. It's '93, so this makes complete sense. So right after seeing this, they escape, or they break back out. Even though the security in this place is a joke. The whole way
joke.
Through.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that more later. I mean, literally later, this kid is just wandering around seeing top secret experiments, you would think.
And they're talking to him about it, too. Oh, this is going to be the future of espionage technology.
And they're telling him that his girlfriend is in a cage and she's going to become one of these things, as if he was not immediately going to break her out. So we'll get to that. So they go back. She's all turned on. They're having sex. She's talking about zombies. And then his dad, because this test was a failure, the dad's being transferred, and the kid's like, nope, I'm not going. I have a girlfriend. She's hot. She's wild. I like her. I got a motorcycle. Fuck it. I'm staying. And dad's not happy about that, but Kurt takes off with the girlfriend, and then she decides that on a motorcycle is a good time to basically start jerking him off. Inexplicable, but the natural result of that is they lose control. She goes headfirst into a power pole. He gets banged up.
Oh,
she's
yeah,
dead.
and that sequence is stark where she goes into that thing. It's like,
dong. Dunk. Yeah, like insta-dead. Like, no doubt about it. So, of course, having just seen a experiment where a dead body is resurrected, he responds in the way that, honestly, I probably would too, which is he grabs her, brings her back.
Weekend and Bernie style. He just mounts her on the back of his
motorcycle. That sequence, because this is described as a comedy, although I really don't think it is.
You're like, where's the security? He's like, hey guys, I'm just gonna go and see my dad. Don't pay attention to the limp woman in the back of the motorcycle.
Yeah, they just wave him through again. I mean, they know he's the guy's son, so there's sort of. They do point out. I do like the fact that they, at least in the beginning, somebody says, well, this place security here is just not good. You know, even though this is a zombie
the guy says, it's all the cutbacks. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, budget cuts. Even though, like I said, in a zombie facility, you would think that you would be putting more effort there than almost anywhere else, since you could have an outbreak happen again. But as you said, the world doesn't care. So he takes the girl in. He exposes her to the trioxin gas. She comes back, but she comes back as a basically fully aware zombie. So she has most of her memories up to the point where she hits the pole. She's not trying to eat him immediately. She's not the traditional zombie.
It's almost like they brought her back so quickly. She's almost too fresh.
Well, that was my question is, okay, because she's only been dead an hour or whatever, is that why this is the case? So if anybody who dies right away is immediately exposed, will they all be this aware?
But I don't think so, because they've had shit like that before where, like, you know, some of these zombies get right up and they don't have any humanity to them.
From what I've read, this is completely jettisoning everything that came before. So it's operating largely on its own rules. The only thing that they were mandated that had to happen, because I was reading about the production of it, and basically Trimark said you can do whatever you want, except you still have to have them eating brains. We have to have that consistent. For some reason, that was their sticking point. Everything else was whatever. You can just let the rest of the lore go. And so that was the only thing, is they had to eat brains. So, for whatever reason. And when Riverman comes back, he has some of his memory.
He does. The guy, he's able to connect with him on some level, yeah.
But he has been dead longer and partially eaten. So I don't know if he lost some of his brain and that's why he's not more aware.
Yeah, he wasn't kind of fully with it in the beginning anyway, so. Right.
So she comes back. She clearly knows something's wrong with her. She's like numb and she's cold and she's desperately hungry. And so they're cruising around. There's a APB out on them, even though the office, when they escape, there are 3 guys right there with guns who could have just shot the tires of the bike so easily, and yet they escape. Fine. Okay. They escape. They're driving around. They go to a convenience store. It just so happens at that convenience store there are some gentleman and a lady
of a Hispanic culture playing Street
Fighter. Of a Latino background of some kind. I had Lando confirm that. It wasn't clear to me, but there was liberal use of the word essay, so that made me think maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure that I'm half joking here because there's no subtlety to these characters whatsoever. There really is not.
It is such a what do you call it, like a sledgehammer stereotype.
Oh, it is. This is so clearly what you're supposed to think it is. Top to bottom. It is playing on. I think you said, "Oh, look at some youths at the bodega" or something like that. Is what you said. I don't remember the exact wording. But anyway, they're in there, and honestly, at first, they seem like they're just playing video games. There doesn't seem to be any necessarily sinister edge to them.
No, they don't seem bad at first.
No, and then she's eating Drake's cakes and stuff, and it's not working, and one of them notices it and says, "Hey, what's with your girl?" And he's like, just stay out of it, and then he bumps into him, and suddenly that becomes a blood feud, and then the proprietor has a gun and pulls it on them, and then there's a scuffle. He's shot and killed. Meanwhile, they run out, they shoot the bike, and then escape because they think the cops are going to show up, which is a reasonable assumption. So the malcontent youths split, even though one of them is like 40, but whatever. The hoodlums take off.
They're definitely not youths, yeah.
Well, one of them seems young. The girl and the guy who gets bitten seem young. She bites a guy, and so he's now
and that's essentially the thing, is that she hasn't fully converted, but whoever she bites is a zombie.
Yeah, she doesn't know why why she's still hungry. She hasn't quite put together what's happening, but she knows something's wrong. And Kurt should be able to figure it out, but also seems like he doesn't quite know. And to be fair, she doesn't come back as a standard zombie. So maybe Kurt does think that he did it quickly enough that she won't become one of them. Because he seems to be in heavy denial, and maybe part of that is because he honestly thinks he beat the system.
He is psychotically optimistic.
Well, I thought about it a little bit after we watched it, and I thought, again, because she comes back in a way that is close to what she was before until a certain point, he may have genuinely thought that if he did it quickly enough, because she wasn't buried. I don't know how much people know about how zombies work. So it appears based on this movie that there is a difference in how you come back based on how long you've been dead. I mean, there does seem to be some correlation between how long you've been dead and what form you come back in. Just based on what this movie shows us. Jettisoning everything else that we know, because the movie appears to run on its own logic, which is fine. Every movie runs on its own universe. That's okay. But based on what we see in this movie, it does appear that the length of your death to resurrection through the gas specifically, there is something different about that.
Well, you know what? Honestly, I wonder if it's also if you are resurrected with the gas versus being
no, that is demonstrated because people who are bitten, although we do see that people do turn at different rates. That's again kind of
but you could make an argument that that's metabolism or some other bullshit.
Yeah, because the proprietor, when they're in the van, the proprietor gets in the van with them bleeding to death, and he's like, "Take me to a hospital," and then he dies, and she starts eating him. And then when the cops show up, he's now come back as a zombie with half his brain missing.
Well, and the question, and there's some question as to, did she start eating him before he was fully dead?
Unclear. Yeah, unclear.
By the way, there are some really great
no. He gets shot by the cops. Remember, that's when she starts eating him.
Oh yeah, and he falls back. Yeah.
Yes, because he opens the door and says, "Don't shoot!" And cops they shoot him. Yeah, they shoot him, blow half his head off. And she immediately starts eating his brains. And when he comes back, he is not a cognizant zombie. He is a classic zombie.
But honestly, there's large portions of his brain missing at that point.
Right. But Paco, when he comes back, appears to be a standard zombie. And he was bitten.
Yes, he does.
It takes him a lot longer. because he's basically turning.
Well, yeah, but he's not dead. I think that's the other thing too. If you are bitten and you die, then you come back quickly as a zombie.
Right.
If you are
and
bitten,
Santos stays alive as a ripped off head.
Oh my God!
And is yelling and cursing in what appears to be
she pulls
Spanish
his spine up through his neck, and he's basically like a zombie giraffe at that point.
What a delight the effects in this movie are. Well, you should say that right
off
the bat.
And the sequences
are great.
And she keeps stabbing herself to kind of like make herself feel pain, which brings her back to humanity. And some of those sequences are really well done, like watching her dig around in her skin and like all that shit. Oh, well. God.
Her acting is good. I like the character. Like she's they're escaping.
The effects are well done in that respect.
Well, that's where they put the money into the effects, which I think was the right decision, because I told you this. I thought that the movie was going to have good effects in the beginning, and this is the typical way that lesser B movies or low budget movies go, is they pack all the stuff up front, because at the time they would have been trying to get distribution. So they put all the heavy stuff up front, because most of the distributors would watch the first 15 to 20 minutes and say, yeah, okay, we'll buy it and we'll distribute it. So you put it all up front, and then you put it at the end so that people get to the end of the movie, and even if it was boring in the middle, they'll be like, wow, but the ending was great. So they like it. So you're trying to offload, you're basically load balancing the front and the back. And then a lot of them have a very boring middle. And that's because they spend all their budget on the effects on the front and the back. Whereas this movie sprinkles it all through. You get good effects the whole movie, which I think is what pushes it above. The story and the effects push it above where a movie like this should be. So they're escaping. She's realizing that, okay, yeah, I need to eat brains, because when she's eating the proprietor...
Well, she's compelled to it, yeah.
Well, that's it, because he says, what are you doing? And she kind of snaps out of it. And then they start, and then there's stuff in the middle that I like a lot between the two of them, where like they're blaming each other for why she's like this.
Oh, when they get to the fight in the sewers, yeah.
They get this, yeah, because they're escaping, and they go into the sewers to escape the cops. And that's when the what do you call it? The bodega owner attacks the cops and, gets stabbed in the eye, and, all that stuff happens, there's great effects and some nice dummies in there too. So they go into the sewers and they come out into the aqueduct. So I guess this is supposed to be LA. They never specify, I don't think, but it's LA aqueducts.
It's definitely LA.
Well, it's clearly where it is, but I don't think they ever say it. So they come out, and then this guy starts following them. And at first, the way he reads is that he's going to attack them. He seems to be a sinister person.
Psychopath, yeah.
Right. And so he's following them, and then she goes up, and she's going to jump off the bridge. But they're having this fight where, she's like, well, you did this to me. And he's like, well, and he's like, I think he slaps her at one point or something. I don't remember. But basically they're going back and forth. But, and then she's like, I'm not going to be able to be the way I was. You're not going to want me like this. I'm just going to keep getting worse. And he's like, I don't care. I brought you back because I love you. Like that. I like all that stuff. Their relationship is great because they clearly do care about each other.
Yeah.
It's not just, one-sided or anything, because they could have played her character differently where she was using him or whatever.
Yeah, it's not, and it's not just like, oh, you're hot. So honestly,
yeah,
the sequence in this movie, my biggest jump of logic was you tried to caress over me, other than the security element at the end, was when she's got all the shit in her and she's all like she's got all the knives sticking through her skin, all the glass, and the one guy's like, hey, baby, I'm going to take you out back and I'm going to give you a good time. And you're like, what? What? Like, who looks at this woman and thinks, this is sexual material right here? Like, that sequence made no sense. And he deserved what he got.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, they have a fight. She jumps off the bridge.
She jumps, and, she hits the water, and she drifts along. And then this guy shows up, and he's the Riverman. You don't find his name out for a while, but he basically shows up, and he's like, hey, man, she's dead. You're not going to find her. She's dead. And he's like, no, I'm going to find her. And so they find her, and she comes alive, or comes back to life again because she can't kill herself. And then the malcontents show up, and they manage to drive their car down into the aqueduct, and they're there. And they're screaming and yelling. Even though they have a gun, they don't shoot at them. They're just yelling at them from across the water, which they could probably drive across, but that's okay. And so Riverman's like, come with me. Let's go into the sewers. And they go into the sewers, and he's got this little lair. and that they got her there,
and you keep expecting him to go nuts. You keep expecting him to become some kind of bad guy element at some point.
Well, because he is playing it a lot psychotic.
Yeah.
He's overdoing the psychosis thing to me. I feel like this is, to be fair, I think that maybe it's just that the actor is either he was being directed to go too big, or he was not capable of doing more subtlety. I don't know which it was. I think you get a better actor or better direction in this, and you actually have a much more interesting, a much more believable character. Not interesting, believable.
Yeah, but I mean, considering this is a movie where you get a zombie, a giraffe zombie-necked motherfucker, I think we're kind of beyond that at this point.
I truly believe they got lucky that they found Melinda Clarke, and she's as good as she is. I have a feeling they didn't. Oh yeah,
if they'd gotten a bad actress for that role, it would have made the movie laughable.
It would have made it tougher to like it as much. Yes, because she's very good. So they get her there, and she's talking about the fact that she's going to turn into one of these things, and there's a point where she's basically, how are you ever gonna want to be with me? I'm gonna end up alone. I'm lonely. She's like all this stuff, which makes sense because she knows what she is at this point. Like, she's aware of what she is, even though she says, I'm not dead and I'm not alive. So she is something different, because she's not just a normal zombie, nor has she been revived the way that
and the thing is, even later in the movie, after she has kind of like gone more nuts, she still comes to with him.
She'll snap back into it.
Yeah.
It's almost like an Alzheimer's thing, where it's like she'll snap back to being herself. Or addiction, I guess. I think maybe it's an addiction.
Honestly, I thought about that, if this was some kind of weird metaphor for addiction.
Well, I mean, it kind of is, because she is using. She's eating brains, and when she needs the brains, she's lashing out at everybody. So it is the obvious addiction metaphor too. But essentially, they're stuck down here. The guys finally find them, and they're trying to break in. And the Riverman and Kurt go out to try to defend her. And she starts like inserting all this stuff into herself, and she basically turns herself into a Hellraiser being. Yeah, she comes out and is, like the big shot of the movie is when she opens the door and she's just completely metaled out, like Tetsuo the Iron Man.
She's got knives in her fingers and through all.
She's driving wire through her finger at one point. It's horrible looking, like all this stuff, glass everywhere. And so she comes out and she just starts wrecking people. Like, she takes, Santos is like, hey, let's have a good time. And you just hear, ah! And the next thing you see is her with his head. And I said, before we saw it, I said, oh, please tell me she's going to have his head with the spinal cord dragging the body. And sure the fuck enough, she's got the head with the spinal cord out to the body where she like ripped it, but it hadn't separated. Yeah. And she's dragging the body and she just kind of throws it. And then Riverman gets shot, and then the military shows up. Santos comes back to life. They barricade themselves inside of the Riverman's little place, but the zombies are breaking through. They manage to escape, but then they get pinned down. And this was my one problem with the movie. This is where I really was like, no, I don't like this. And I'm actually going to be curious.
Well, hold on.
If the commentary talks about this.
Because here's the thing. So Kurt basically goes to hold the door against the new zombies and sends Riverman with the girl away.
Yes.
Right? But honestly, I look at that sequence and I'm like, dude, I was like, how do you think she's not going to eat him? Like, and this is the whole glaring optimism of the character. So then when he finally gets away and he goes into the room, surprise, she's eaten Riverman. And I think that is the sequence. And you just think, are you talking about the sequence where basically he gives her up?
Yes, but for this sequence, what you're talking about, I'm putting myself in his shoes, and there is a denial at work, right? When it's somebody you love, you do start to just believe in any type of hope there is.
And any hope.
The fact that she does keep snapping back, I think he thought she would be able to last, that she would be able to keep it together.
Except that she leaves an incredible body count. I mean,
I don't disagree, but everybody before this kind of deserved it or was already dead. Riverman is the first innocent, if you want to put it that way.
That she kills, yeah.
Yes. Everybody else was either aggressive towards her, which was basically everybody except the shop owner, but he was dead. I mean, he already been shot. So there's really there's no malice there. She was just using the meat that was in front of her. Yeah, she didn't kill him. Riverman is the first one who just kills. We don't see it. He comes and finds her eating the Riverman. and is like, how could you do that? And that is kind of,
I think that's the thing that breaks him.
Well, it is.
Because hold on, you have to mention the fact that Riverman gives this speech to Kurt that neither of us expected.
No,
basically,
he's talking about
Kurt's like,
how if the he's like I think everybody inside because he says, well, what's your plan? He's like, well, I'm going to go to Seattle with her. I'm going to get a gig in a band. I'm a drummer, and he's like, that sounds pretty stupid. The Riverman's like, no, that's not stupid. If everybody,
no, it's good. Yeah,
he has a line of something along the lines of, if everybody took what was inside of them and bring it out, the world would be better. And I'm like,
yes.
And I'm like,
and it's
fighting back tears. I'm like, Jesus
yeah,
Christ,
and you're
this
like,
guy figured it
whoa.
out.
It's like, I didn't want the Riverman to die. I feel terrible for how he goes in this movie.
Yeah, and he gives Kurt a coin, and he says, help somebody and give that person this coin. And if this coin just keeps moving, it means that people are helping it. It is out of, that's what I mean about, I kind of wish there was a better actor in that role, because it's the equivalent of Ramirez's speech in Highlander 2, right? Highlander 2 has a lot of problems. It's not a great movie. Yeah. But the Ramirez speech,
if you can take your whole life and sum it up into one moment. Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's excellent. Great. Yeah. It's one of those things. Whereas I'm not saying this movie is Highlander 2. It is not. This is far better overall than Highlander 2. Even though I adore Highlander 2 because of its janky, broken terribleness. But if somebody like a Connery was in this role, it would be such a powerful speech, Not literally Sean Connery, but,
Listen, if you shored up all the logic holes, right, and you gave this thing production, you often say this where you're like, oh, I think there's a good movie in here if they did it over. I think that there's a really good movie at the center of this. That
my short review, I said I would love to see this remade with more money.
Yeah, and shore up the logic holes. The thing is, if you do that, if you make it make sense why some of these things would happen, right? Like, in fact, I think a really easy way to secure this, to make this movie work better, right? Especially with the security thing, is if you change it so that Kurt is slightly older, and that he works there with his dad, and he wants to get out. Because then that, for me, makes it so the reason his being in a secure facility, suddenly it's like, okay, this makes sense. Your dad got you the position, you're working there, you hate it. This is why you can just walk around, and it makes it easier for him to get in and out. Like things like that. Like, if they just change little things, I think just to make it so that, go on.
The biggest things that I think, as far as the logic of the film, one is, like you said, the security. They have to address it either by that they watch the guards and they realize that there's huge gaps in where the guards are walking around, because it could be a big facility. So that's one way to get around that. Not the thing at the end. The thing at the end, you have to make it where Kurt is like spying and finds out they've got Julie. Not that he just walks in the room. That can't happen. He has to break into the room somehow. But the security thing, now, as far as the logic of the zombies, that I think, because there is a little bit of vagary there, I think all you have to do with that is say that the reason they're doing all this research is they still don't understand everything about how trioxin works.
Honestly, the research doesn't bother me at all. That's exactly what they'd be doing.
Well, yeah, that's as far as the logic stuff. Yeah, the security thing is the biggest kind of flaw, especially at the end where people are just telling him everything.
Oh, by the
Whereas
way,
if he was just observing it, it would make he figures it out. That's better.
You got to hit your button.
Oh, is it 2 hours? Let's see. Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, good call. I wasn't watching. I was so wrapped up in this thing that I wasn't paying attention to the fact that
200 hours later.
Thank you. Yeah, so that is the biggest problem, is at the end. Whereas if he had kind of gotten back in, and the fact that his dad had been transferred and yet he still has access. Like, there's lots of problems with the security at the end. Yeah. Ursa walks by him 2 or 3 times and doesn't care at all that he's there, which she clearly was supposed to be the adversarial kind of counterpart to Crichton Sr.
It's a weird role that she's in it, but she's got so little for so long to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she's basically at the very beginning, at the very end, and that's it. So she's pops up.
But maybe you know what? Maybe she's the special effects. Maybe she's the money. Maybe she's what got them to pay for it. It's the whole.
Very possible.
Hey, she's in it. She's in the beginning and the end.
Right. So she's eating Riverman. The officers catch up to him. Officers, by the way, the Crichton Sr. Made insubordinate by pulling them off, even though Ursa said you've been relieved of duty. So again, how did Crichton Sr. anybody get back in there? But court martial. But okay, fine. So they show up and they're basically, he says, get out of the way. We have to shoot her. And this is my biggest problem with the movie is instead of doing one simple thing that makes this, because he gives her up. He basically gets out of the way and they shoot her and they put her down. Right? And I have a huge issue with that because I'm like, at this point, you either take the bullet for her or you are a piece of shit. But the way that you solve that, where the same thing can happen, is that he says, get out of the way. The son refuses. And one of the other guys with him shoots the son with a tranq dart and puts him down. And then they shoot her with a bullet. Yeah. And then you're clear.
And like I said, if you remade this, you could answer all these kind of little nitpicks and make it work. Yeah.
Easily. That's the thing is that these are very minor problems that you solve very easily. So it is prime remake material. So they get her and they put her in the facility and then Kurt just goes back and is strolling around. And at this point, Ursa's running the show.
So he's in the office with his dad while his dad is getting a talking to from his superior officer, right?
Yes.
And Kurt just gets up and wanders out.
Well, that's what I'm saying is he's just wandering around.
And
he's
you're
just
like,
in the facility.
And if you for some reason hear the commentary, you can hear me going, "Where's the security?"
Oh yeah, and he looks in at Ursa. He sees her operating on stuff as if he didn't already have to know, but based on what they saw in the very beginning, that this is what they're doing. But he sees it. He goes into a room where they've got Julie in a cage,
along with the other zombies.
Along with other zombies, that Riverman's being put into the exoskeleton,
and they're screwing him into it, which is pretty brutal.
It is pretty brutal. Yes, it doesn't. It looks terrible. And so then Beaker is walking around and says to him, "Oh yeah, this is what we're doing. We're gonna, we're making them into human batteries because they never run out." And he says, "Wait, are you gonna do that to my girlfriend?" He's like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do it to her too."
Oh yeah, it's gonna be great, man. It'll be hilarious. Yeah.
And so logically, then he's like, "Oh, okay, thanks." Opens the cage, lets her out, and then mayhem ensues. Basically, at that point, it just goes crazy.
Oh man, and that's the thing. Like, it really does go from like 0 to 100 at that point. Like, yes, absolutely.
All the zombies are breaking out. Exoskeleton Riverman is
they're crawling out of
RoboCopping.
They're crawling out of the fucking bins that they've got them locked into.
Yeah. He opens a thing and he pushes Ursa into all these bins, and then there's things coming out of the bins. And so, it's monster mash mayhem and everything's going crazy and the whole facility's, being locked down. And so there's a point where it's Kurt and Julie are there.
But you know what? Even at this point, I didn't think there was going to be an outbreak. I thought they were going to lock the facility down and go in and kill everything. But that there wasn't going to be an outbreak.
Oh, well, I mean, we never see them get out of the facility. So
yeah,
they're as far as I know, they're all sealed in there because when Beaker pulls the gun or when somebody pulls the gun, the alarms go off and the whole facility is then in alert. You see like the doors are closing. Yeah, so they are locked down. It is sealed. This never ever really feels like it could be an outbreak past the facility. No, because that's not the focus of the movie. The focus of the movie is Kurt and Julie, and so they're there, and Kurt's like, okay, Kurt gets bit, and so now his dad's like, you gotta come out,
yeah.
And Kurt's like, Dad, they bit me. That's it. And so he goes to Julie, and she's like, what are we going to do?
And let me say, though, Joe is skipping a lot because there is some brutal shit that goes on between point A and point B. He lets her out, but there's a whole ton of shit that goes on because Riverman is in that big mecha zombie suit, and he's smashing shit left and right, and then
Ursa's blowing parts of his limbs off.
Yeah, pieces out with the shotgun, and one of his arms is missing. And I mean, it gets
but he's still walking around because he's got the exoskeleton, so it doesn't matter because he's still basically a living being in an exoskeleton. And he goes to kill Kurt, and Kurt holds up the coin, and Riverman recognizes it and gets them out. So again, he has some semblance of his logic, mind. Yes, but he can't really talk. I mean, not much. He's just yelling a lot because he's in pain. So, and this is the thing is, at one point, Julie said she was numb. Well, obviously, Riverman can feel pain. So the pain thing seems to come and go because then she also says pain stops the hunger. So I don't, the rules are unclear
until
on what
it stops working.
Yes, until inevitably the hunger overwhelms it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Is eventually Because what they say is they're consuming the neurons for electrical something to drive the body or whatever. I don't know. It's, sure. It doesn't matter. So at the very end, it's Kurt who knows he's going to transform. Julie, who is, eventually going to have to eat brains again. And he's like, I know how we're going to get out. Just trust me. And he basically opens an incinerator, and they climb into the incinerator, and they kiss, and the flames come up, and that's the end of the movie. So it's Romeo and Juliet with zombies. I mean, that's what it is. And because it's that, because the focus is them, and the zombies are just kind of things that are around them, and they're a mechanism. Honestly, zombification is what demonstrated for each of them their devotion to each other.
Yeah.
And so in that way, it's a beautiful movie. It's a bit of a bummer, but I mean, they did die together, so it could have been worse. He didn't have to kill her.
And that is Romeo and Juliet, which is that it's a doomed couple that they're going to die in the end. It's
a less bleak film than, say, The Fly.
Oh,
where, basically Brundlefly puts the gun to his head. Gina Davis has to blow his head off. So at least they died together and they were aware of each other, so it isn't as much of a doom and gloom as that.
Honestly, I mean, you're functioning on the mindset that they're actually dead.
Well, yeah, we don't see it. But as you said, logically, burning them to ash will do it.
Theoretically, yeah.
Yeah, nothing survives intense heat. Even the planet eventually will be consumed by the sun. So, there's no reason. Nothing has shown us, nothing in this movie, nor any other movie, has shown that a zombie can't be burned all the way to the ground and survive. Like, I haven't seen that. Like, vampires can do that, but zombies can't, as far as we know.
Burn to nothing.
Burn to nothing. I mean, it is a bio-incinerator, which again reinforces that they did know how to destroy them. They just didn't know how to control them, how to just use them and stop them from going indiscriminately crazy. Because otherwise, why would you have a bio-incinerator? It's obviously to get rid of the bodies. So the movie is a lot better. I didn't really have any expectations of it because I didn't see it. But I kind of have sort of on the periphery. I was reading that it was better than people thought. And so I was like, okay, well, if nothing else, there's a cool looking woman in it who's all knived up and again, looks like Pinhead's long lost daughter. So whatever, it'll be fun. And it ended up being a lot better than that. Cause in the commentary, I said, you hear me say, I just bought it because I bought the goddamn movie as we're watching it because I was so impressed with it. And I really am looking forward to the commentary with the actress because I really want to know what she thinks of this. Because I think I think she's great. But I think she is far and away the best part of the movie in terms of acting. Where she's, because this could have been a throwaway role. You could have just done this and not had to care. Some of the other people in the movie are not necessarily bad actors, but they're clearly not great actors. They're character actors or kind of people who be in these types of movies, which is not a criticism necessarily, but there's a ceiling to the performances at times. And like Kurt, like the guy's fine, but he's clearly not. I mean, I don't know if he did anything else. I didn't look at his IMDb.
I'm actually going to look that up right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine he popped up here and there, but he's not kind of not like her. She is clearly above everybody else. I mean, even Crichton Sr. I don't think is as good as she is.
Oh, he was always a B-level actor.
Yeah, okay, and that makes sense. He's not bad.
No, he's not. He's
terrible.
Just never really.
And to be fair, because I haven't seen him anything else, this might have just been one of his early movies, and he was still learning it. Maybe he's a great actor now in B movies. He could be a great B movie actor. I don't know. I don't know that. It could just be that she's acting circles around everybody else because she's just so much better. I mean, it doesn't hurt that she is riveting to look at. Like she's got this striking look.
She's good looking.
Before she even starts zombifying herself up.
This guy has shown up in some interesting shit.
Okay.
Like I'm gonna read you. Like, yeah, okay. So this guy was in the show Alien Nation.
Okay.
Right. He had a three episode stint in Alien Nation, the show, not the movie. Right, he did some Matlock, right? He did Meatballs 4, which
he's
anyone
Lord
who
of
knows.
Illusions. He's the young guy.
He was in Lord of Illusions, yeah.
Oh, he's the young Butterfield. Okay, you know what? I saw his picture on, like, his adult picture, and he did look familiar. That's
Yeah,
why.
you know what? He was in Beverly Hills 90210. So your wife will know him, too.
Yeah, my wife will know him instantly.
He when you get a chance, ask her if she remembers a character named Evan Potter. He was in 4 episodes. Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, this guy, he stopped acting in 99 for whatever reason.
Yeah. Well, wait a minute. Evan Potter. Oh, that's season 7. That's not who I thought it was. Okay, so he's later on. Season 7's like halfway, or more than halfway through. Okay. Yeah.
So this guy also went on to do shit, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe that's why they work, because the two of them are the best thing in the movie.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know, so. It's a weird
thing.
And
that's why I'm saying, you know, in fairness, maybe she's just the best thing in the movie because she's better than everybody. So it kind of makes everybody else look lesser because she is clearly the focus of the movie.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is great. So like I said, it looks like movies that have a 3 are not usually, I've said this before, you don't go into the third movie and expect, there are exceptions. Like Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is generally considered the best one, you know, depending on what you're going in for. But generally, like Jaws 3, Halloween 3, even though I love Halloween 3, most people think it's shit. I think it's great. But this is not traditionally, you know, a Nightmare or Friday the 13th Part 3. Generally, no. That's
no. You genuinely have
Godfather Part 3.
You generally have worse movies as you go on, unless they do something completely different,
which this did. And at the time it was out, would I have really paid attention? No. I wasn't into movies like I was now. Not like this, where I'd be like, well, let's see. Did this one decide to go in a different direction? You know, was this a Halloween 3 or is this a Godfather 3? Let's find out. I wouldn't have done the research. You know, I wouldn't have known. I would have, you know, just looked at something else probably. I mean, like I said, I remember seeing the cover, and that probably should have been enough for me. I mean, seeing a girl like this, I would have been like, oh, I'm going to watch this. But you know, for whatever reason, I never saw it.
Well, now you have.
Now I have, and I will have it in my physical possession soon. And I really am looking forward to the commentary because I really want to. I've seen a couple things she's posted, so she clearly isn't somebody who's ashamed or wants to forget about this movie. I think people have come to recognize that it was doing something different, and so I think I've seen some posts where people are like, "Oh yeah, this is not just a." You know, this is not just a.
No, I mean the review. You know. The review on IMDb is a surprisingly good and somewhat original horror film.
Yeah, I think it got a reevaluation. I think because it's. I don't know if it was well received when it came out. I really don't. Because again, it's a 3, so I'm gonna guess probably not. It probably was. And I don't know if these movies, when they were originally out, I don't know how well regarded, except for the first one. And the first one was much more of a kind of horror comedy than this is described. IMDb, I think, said this was a horror comedy.
Oh, man. Paul Rudd auditioned for the role of Kurt. I was just looking up the trivia.
That definitely is more of that would be evidence it was intended to be comedic more. But
oh, Jesus Christ.
Paul Rudd,
The film was released unrated on VHS in addition to the R-rated theater cut. The director
we saw the unrated one.
Oh, okay, so he trimmed 50 and 60 moments to get the R rating.
Yeah, one of them is when the shop owner gets the crowbar through the face. That's yeah. That's how I knew we saw, because I was like, oh shit, which one did we watch? No, we saw the unrated one. Yeah, we saw it. We're good. Because I was thinking that too. I was like, oh shit. But no, we're okay. We saw the correct version, which I sort of assumed, because that generally now when you see this stuff, that it is almost always the restored or the uncut versions, unless there's some specific reason. So, and like I said, the best part is you can watch it for free. It's on, it's on Plex, it's on Tubi, it's on Freevee, it's on everything. Anything where there's a free one, almost virtually. I think the IMDb has them all listed if you look at it. But the nice part is you can watch it for free, so you don't even have to buy it. Although I would certainly say it's worth a rental. Yeah, so Freevee, Plex, Tubi. You can rent it on Prime for $4. I mean, you'll get it without ads. I think it's worth it. I would absolutely say this is worth paying money for.
I think it's worth $4.
But if you're not sure, then you can watch it for free. The interesting part about I'm looking at that cover art, is the things in her fingers make it look like she's got rings that have sharp things coming off them, but they're going through her fingers too. So that's kind of interesting. I didn't really pay attention to it until now. But yeah, you can watch it for free, or for $4. Yeah, if I'd paid $10 for this, I would have found it to be worth it. I thought it was really good. I liked it. I mean, I paid $20 for the Blu-ray, so obviously I think it's good. Man.
Yeah.
Actually, let's see. The Riverman guy, did he do anything else?
Oh man, I guess I didn't think to look him up.
He was in he was in Marked for Death. His name was Screwface in that movie.
No.
He's got 48. Yeah, he's got 48
fucking
credits.
Screwface?
He is.
Son of a bitch.
Wow, yeah. This guy did some stuff. Oh, he was in 90210.
Screwface is fucking awesome. That's the one where Steven Seagal kills the one, and he's like, haha, I got him. And then you realize it's twin brothers, and the other twin brother comes back and kills one of Seagal's guys. Like, Screwface is fantastic. Wait,
Screwface
awesome.
Was the twin?
Yeah. So Seagal's going after like the Jamaican
No,
mob.
I sort of remember it. Remember
it. And they go down to Jamaica, and I think they think they're killing Screwface. And they are, but the thing is that Screwface has made everyone think he's magical by basically there's two of them, the twins. And that's how he makes it seem like he can be in two places at once. So when they kill one of them, the other one shows up and stabs the guy through the back. Yeah, that's a great character. That's awesome.
Yeah,
this guy, man, his guy showed up in a lot of interesting shit. He was in Blood Diamond,
90210. He was a cop.
NCIS. Let's see. Oh, he was in Burn Notice. Yeah, this guy's had a good long working career as well. I like that. I like it when they get a lot of work.
No, like I said, I'm. That makes me think that
that's fantastic.
That makes me think that maybe the direction wasn't good because maybe he was going a little too over the top because he was told to. If this was the only thing this guy was in, I'd say
episodes. He was in 2 episodes of Quantum Leap.
I saw that. Yeah.
He was in Wedlock. He was in Star Trek Next Generation as Klingon Guard number 1.
Well, that I wouldn't know him from, but he was Laboko in West Wing. He was like that's when there was that civil war where they were like wiping out everybody.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, this guy's done a lot of interesting shit.
Yep. So see, there you go.
There you go, yeah.
That commentary is up on Patreon. So if you want to hear us talking through it, you can go and you can see it there. And again, free tier. I'm not charging anybody for this stuff. But it's because Patreon lets me upload anything I want. So, it will be degraded. I am going to now put a little disclaimer at the front saying that I am intentionally degrading the quality because I do think people should buy these movies. So I'm not trying to take money away from these companies. I'm really not. Nothing that we've watched so far. I mean, we've only watched 3, but the 3 they've all been worth watching. We have not watched anything terrible yet. So,
I mean, I have, but that's the Meg too.
No, not. I'm saying the two of us in our little watch party things. So far, we're 3 for 3. I'm not gonna say they're all the best movies we've ever watched, but they've all been worth watching for what they are.
We had fun watching them.
Yeah, I think the next one I'm sandbagging. I already know it's great, so I know it's going to be good, and you haven't seen it, so I'm sort of giving myself that out because I think as a commentary it'll be fun.
Well,
and then,
go,
I mean, we could just start alternating where you could pick one, I could pick one, and we'll see.
We find ourselves at the end.
Yeah, and that's it. So lots of stuff to avoid.
No, you know what? I will say this of my list of movies, right? Don't see Aliens vs. Predator.
Let me guess. The Meg.
Okay.
The Meg would be the one you'd say to watch. That's the one you would say of all the.
No.
If you had to pick one to watch.
I go through it. Aliens vs. Predator. Don't bother. I always watch Tremors. Right. Tremors is
I
great.
forgot about Tremors. Okay, yeah, that's a sandbag. That's an easy.
If you got to watch Meg or Meg 2, it's weird because the Meg 2 is so bad. But honestly, I think you should see it just for the sheer fucking audacity of it. But if you're going to watch one of them, the first one is better. The first one,
that's where I was going.
Yeah, but honestly, watching the second one right after watching the first one really makes you understand how a movie can be ruined. So, and honestly, Ready Player One, I think it's a good-looking movie. It's just not a good movie. So, like, if you really just want something mindless that looks pretty, if you want a music video that goes on for 2 hours, Ready Player One is your movie. But if you want something that's got, like, a good storyline that makes sense, no, I'm going to read the book. I've never been compelled to read a book by a movie that annoyed me. So this is a new one for me. But, yes, I guess, I mean, honestly, if you had to watch one of these, if you had to watch one movie from all the movies we talked about tonight.
Not Tremors, because, I mean, Tremors is an easy one. So putting that
No, I know, but that's what I was going to say. If you have to watch one movie from all the movies we talked about tonight, I would say watch Tremors.
Well,
because I think it's the best.
But Tremors shouldn't be in with those other ones. We know Tremors is good. That's what I'm getting at. So of the non-Tremors films, what would it be?
Honestly,
that's what I'm saying. You got to get rid of Tremors because that's a good movie.
I'd probably watch, if I had to watch one of them again, I'd probably watch Ready Player One over the Meg, just because it'd be interesting to see. I'd only be watching it to see what references I missed, little things in the background, like because it's like Battletoads. They brought Battletoads into it. That was like a bad cartoon from when I was a kid. So like I'd be watching it on freeze frame, just being like, what the fuck did they stick in here? Because some stuff goes by so quickly that you barely notice it. This is the whole, like you said, reference without reverence. I want to give it reverence. I want to pause and I want to see it and say, shit, that's fucking, I mean, he's walking around with Han Solo's gun and his belt buckle is the Thundercat symbol. I mean, it's just, so.
You're out of your fucking mind.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So Lando's recommendation, accepting Tremors.
Watch Tremors. Go watch Tremors.
No. We're going to recommend Tremors no matter what.
Yeah, Tremors.
That's what I'm saying. Tremors does not belong in a consideration list. It's a good movie.
So many times. Tremors is a great movie.
I agree. It's a great movie. So outside of those, it's Ready Player One for Lando. But I think we would actually, okay, accepting Tremors, we'd probably say watch Return of the Living Dead 3 before you watch
no. I definitely think Return of the Living Dead. I'd rather watch that again. Yeah, because honestly, when that when they get back to that facility, no, you know what? When she pulls the head out of that guy, I was stupefied.
Yeah, I lost my mind a bit on that.
I was not ready for. And then he's like, his head's floating above his body.
Yeah,
and he's like fucking
swearing
cursing,
and he's yelling.
And he's still angry at. I mean,
you know what I love about that as a final thing with that. One of I think a decision that I adore that they made is you don't really. Most of his swearing and everything is behind the door. So you just keep hearing him. You're not really seeing him for the most part.
But you know it's his head floating around.
Then when they punch a hole in it, they obviously had the actor just stick his head through. Because the rest of it, you could tell it's a dummy. You could tell it's an effect. But then because you can't see the rest of him, it's the actor with like a little bit of blood on his neck going, hey, fuck you, ha ha ha. And then, then they go back to
there's some very clever, quick cut editing to make the special effect and the real person look like it's the same thing.
Right.
So
no, the effects are
and this goes back to that idea that when you have all the money in the world, theoretically you should make a perfect movie. And it's when you don't have all the money in the world that you then have to do the best you can. And those are sometimes more impressive because you're seeing people do the most they can with the little that they have. So it's like it's the whole Ready Player One should be fucking perfect. Why? Because it's Spielberg and he had all the money in the world to do it. Whereas Return of the Living Dead 3 should be a total piece of shit, but it's not. It's actually quite enjoyable and watchable, which makes it's
very good.
Amazing because it's like this is the third movie in a horror series. It should be terrible.
No, okay, not only the third movie in a horror series, but the third movie in a sub-series off of the main series that has two classics in it. These are spin-offs of the Night of the Living Dead movies. So you're going Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and then Return of the Living Dead, which was a shocker because it was good. Then the second one, which, and then you got to the third one. So this is essentially the sixth movie at this point of these types.
Maybe this is like Fast and the Furious. The more they make, the more ridiculously absurd they get, the more fun they get.
Oh, they've made more, and my understanding is they are terrible. But there is a Return of the Living Dead, Rave Till You Die or something. I saw the poster art for it, and I'm like, no, I'm not even... I think I'm good stopping at 3 here, because 3 was a nice upswing. So I'm like, stop there.
Well, because it was something
I'll just
different.
Stop here. Yes. Yeah. So...
Unless I find
that one of the other ones,
the director wanted to name it something differently. He didn't want to call it Return of the Living Dead 3.
Yeah, I do agree. It's a terrible title.
But they wanted to connect it.
Yeah,
because that's the thing. Remember, name recognition sells a lot of tickets.
Yeah, there was Return of the Dead, Rave to the Grave, which has a 3.3. Return of the Living Dead, Necropolis, which has a 3.3. So they clearly did keep going. I don't know when these are. I mean, Rave to the Grave looks like just bargain basement shit. Rave or but oh god, a college student creates a drug called Z and sells it on campus, inadvertently resurrecting living. Yeah, I don't know.
You know, this reminds me of a story from college that maybe I've told before, but I'm going to tell it again because I think it's important. My friend and I went to a porn shop when we were in college, and we were looking at the selection, and there was a big bin of discount DVDs, and then there was the actual wall of new release DVDs, right, of brands that so like Vivid, I think it was one of the brands, right, but they were like 2 or 3 times as expensive as the bargain bin.
Sure.
And I remember saying to my friend, I'm gonna buy one of those. I'm not going to get one of the actual, movies. And he was like, oh, bargain bin's like, $3 movies. I'll just get one of those. And I was like, okay, you do that. And I remember later when we watched our respective movies and we compared notes, his movie was so terrible. So terrible. Like, every aspect of it was terrible. And we exchanged movies because I didn't believe him. And I remember when I watched his movie, it was so... I mean, truly, it is one of the worst pieces of pornography I've ever seen. The filming was bad. The people that they selected for these movies was bad. The surgery that these women had done on their bodies was, like, frightening. Like, like boob jobs where, like, it literally looks like someone just, like, slapped a cone on there and sewed it down.
Yeah.
I mean, every aspect of this was just terrible. And it goes back to that idea of, sometimes, a bad movie is a bad movie.
Well, sometimes you can judge a book by its cover.
Yes. And that's why, like, Return of the Living Dead 3 is special because, for all intents and purposes, it should have been the bad porno. But it's not. But that doesn't mean that all the ones after it aren't going to be the bad porno.
It's true.
And sometimes, like, it's like Fright Night. Fright Night 1 is a really great movie. Fright Night 2 is a really great movie. And for all intents and purposes, shouldn't be a great movie. But somehow it is.
Yeah.
And it's just things like that. It's like, sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes these movies end up being...
Howling 1 is a great movie. Howling 2 is a great bad movie.
I haven't seen Howling 2.
Oh, Howling 2, Your Sister is a Werewolf?
Oh my God, that's the title?
Yeah, that is the...
Wow.
Yes. Howling 2, ... Your Sister is a Werewolf.
Nope, I have not seen that one.
Original title, Howling 2, Sturbo, Werewolf Bitch.
Werewolf Bitch.
Uh-huh. Christopher Lee is in this the second Howling. It is, I think, in a movie that they knew was,
But not going to be great.
Yeah. Yes. I do remember at one point, because I'm like, Christopher Lee's in this, and I think he said the only reason he did it is because up until this, nobody had ever cast him in a werewolf movie. So that was the one type of movie he'd never done.
Oh, good for him then, I guess. I guess he was checking off his list.
I mean, it's mostly known for Sybil Danning looking extremely hot in all the outfits she's wearing, and being a joke.
And she's the werewolf?
She is the werewolf.
Yeah. Now I must know.
What? What she looks like?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, she's a model, so she's got
some great. Oh, there you go, werewolf.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, holy shit!
See that thing with all the gold on it that she's wearing?
Yeah, she's a werewolf.
Oh yeah, no. Look, she's one of those people who was cast because she looked great.
God. Yeah.
So, yeah.
She was in Halloween.
Oh no, she's done movies. She's not.
Yeah,
I'm not saying
has,
she can't.
yeah.
She can't. She's done a lot of stuff, but she's done a lot of junk. A lot of junk.
Oh yeah, she was the succubus in the Superboy show. It's terrible.
Yep.
Well, there you go. Well, it's an interesting.
Maybe we'll watch that at some point.
she's got a lot of interesting shit in her IMDb. There's a movie there called Operation Thunderbolt, God's Gun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, look at this.
Yep.
Well, on that
this
strange
is
note.
the nice part. There's plenty of stuff that someday we'll probably get to. So, in any event, everybody, lots to avoid, but some gems in there too. So, choose your own adventure for this weekend. Whatever you do, have a good time doing it. And if you see a canister that says Trioxin 245 on it, run, and do not use it on anybody who gets killed in a motorcycle accident. It's just not worth it. All right, talk to you next week. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.